Welcome to the Washdown podcast, episode 168. And on today's episode, we are talking with retired Lieutenant Colonel Ken Moran. Ken spent over 20 years in the United States Army. He has a BA in history from the Citadel and an MA in management from Webster University. He is a third generation combat veteran. His grandfather and father both fought in World War II and Vietnam, respectively. We had a great conversation, so I hope you guys enjoy this one. We went down a few rabbit holes, and we covered a wide range of topics, leadership, and all the way to mental health. So, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Here is episode 168 with Lieutenant Colonel retired Ken Moran.
The latter portion of my career, I guess, as a leader, you're starting to take on the personality of your subordinates, and you hear their stories and you care about them and you want to help them. But at some point, how are you releasing, and it becomes this weird, morphed world where you have, a bunch of stories swirling in your head and different trauma and if you truly care about people, then, you're going to carry that weight a bit. Yeah. And if you're not the right person equipped to deal with that, which is maybe my case, eventually that's going to boil over.
Yeah. Well, and I wouldn't even necessarily say, if you're not the right person that you're equipped. I think it's really comes down to being equipped you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so, and a lot of us, like going through our daily lives, we don't know how to release that stuff naturally.
Absolutely.
In
a non-toxic, corrosive way, which is
well, and if you think
20 years for me.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like the cultures that we come from, right? You from the Army, me from the fire service, Josh from the Army, who's behind the camera. You can say hi, Josh.
Hello.
His voice isn't that deep in real life.
Yeah. I don't think that even recorded, but anyway.
It was an early White-esque moment.
It encourages, those cultures encourage maladaptive coping strategies.
100%. I mean, it's a survival strategy, right? So if I'm in combat, there's got a bit of desensitization that I need to have to survive, right? So you're right. Over the course of our careers, we build that wall because it does us, it benefits us, until it doesn't benefit you, right? And then if you're not well trained or if you don't take the time to take care of yourself, then it's going to manifest into corrosive, toxic behaviors, which is, I think a lot of us can relate and have stories specific to that. So it's tough.
It's that compartmentalization of we're really good at the shoving it all down. We're not good at the full. We got to bring it back out to deal with it.
Yeah.
So no, we're not going to do that. So
God forbid you're vulnerable, right? Yeah. And then people take advantage of you, and those thoughts swirl in your head about the negative aspects of vulnerability, right? So, and I know that was a big problem with me is I got to present an appearance.
Right.
Every day I showed up to work, I have to be somebody. And then at some point you lose yourself, and I was that same person at work that I was at home, and there's my wife, to give her all the credit in the world. I remember numerous times she would tell me, "Hey, I'm not one of your soldiers," because that's the way I wanted to talk to her. Like, oh, you're right. Like, I left work 2 hours ago.
Yep. Oh, my wife tells me the same thing.
Yeah.
So
isn't that funny?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So before we get too deep into that,
100%.
Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Ken Moran. Retired from the military quite recently, actually. So interested. I mean, for those that understand the Army or know the culture very well, the Army does a fabulous job of transitioning you out. So if you're, in my case as a retiree, it's a lengthy process. It's 18 to 24 month process. So my official retirement date was 1 November, but back up 24 months, and I was kind of in that zone, incrementally getting to the point where I was going to retire. And so mentally, I've probably been retired a little longer than the 3 or 4 months it's been, but physically, yeah, since 1 November. So retired. It's funny. It's difficult for me to math when it comes to how long I was in the Army. So I commissioned in the military in 2002 as an officer. I went to military school in 1998. So I was under contract with the Army in 1998, but not really paid until 2002 when I received my commission. And then I got out in 2008 for about 18 months, 2 years, and came back. So when you put all that together, it's about 21 years that I actually was in uniform in service to our country. So that's kind of where I come from, and that's been my life and my career.
Okay. So why did you get out in 2007, 2008?
Yeah, and as I've gone through my own journey, most specifically over the last 2 years, it's something I go back to quite often. Is who was the Ken Moran in 2008? So I had just come off a 15-month deployment to Iraq. It was a weird time in the Army where deployments swelled to the 15-month point from the 12-month marker that they've been. And since then, they've gone down, since the latter portion of my deployment life, they went down to 9 months. And a lot of it has to do with human behaviors and, how long can an individual sustain themselves in that high up-tempo, high-stress environment. So, so a lot of scientific studies behind it. But during the surge, we were at these 15-month markers for the deployment. So very long deployment. And that was my second deployment by that point. So 15 months in a contained environment will do a lot to your mind. So I did a lot of soul searching during those 15 months, and I was like, there's a whole world out there of stuff I can try. So there was a mix of that. I also had gotten married just before that deployment. So just a few months before I left on that deployment, my wife and I got married. So that was kind of at play, like, geez, is this going to be our life? 15-month deployments, and you don't know what you don't know at that point. So I just decided to gamble on trying something else in life. And I remember thinking to myself, which is interesting in hindsight, but I could always come back, and will I regret in 20 years from now if I didn't try something else? So there was a lot of factors at play. So so it was, spontaneous to a degree as well. As much as I talk about all those aspects, it was a bit of spontaneity as well. And so I decided to get out and was all in on getting out. And I played that game, that corporate America game, quite proficiently. I went and bought my suits and went to these recruiting firms for officers in transition. Went to hiring conferences and did these round robin 15-minute interviews, one after the other. And then, so I lived that life. And I found, I guess, two things from that experience. I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, what I like in life and what I don't like in life. And one of the things I liked in life was a lot of structure. And I liked being kind of told what to do. And I didn't like a lot of, I was a junior officer when I got out. So I liked a lot of direction. I liked direct leadership. And to the all credit where I worked in corporate America, I was given a lot of autonomy. And I wasn't maybe mature enough to handle that autonomy as a leader. But I went back to where I was comfortable, and that was my subordinates, or in corporate America they called them reports. The individuals were reports, which I always thought was interesting. Like, no, it's a human, it's not a report. But so I kind of drifted into that comfort zone, and I then learned a lot about leadership in a different way. The military And corporate America and business have very analogous leadership philosophies and styles. They feed off each other constantly. But to see it on the outside in a different environment, I learned a lot about a lot of different aspects of leadership. And but I was missing something. I missed maybe some of the camaraderie, some of the brotherhood. I missed, like I said, the structure of life that the Army provided me. Part of me missed deployments. I didn't feel that way when I got out. After 15 months, I didn't miss that, but I started to miss it. I started to miss the simplicity of a deployment, and the simplicity of the lifestyle in the military. And I think one of the rationale, or one of the realizations that I've had, is I missed the purpose. And that was one of the things I struggled with in corporate America, is a purpose. And my naive, immature mind, I always went back to my purpose is to make money for someone else.
Yeah.
And that was really bad thought for me to have, because it just the seed that I carried into work every day. Like, here I am busting my hump. Here are these poor, reports busting their humps. But they don't care about us. They care about the bottom line. That's probably not true, but that was my headspace at the time.
I'd say it's probably more true than we either of us would like to admit.
Of course, and it's sad, but it is a part of capitalism. So to live in this beautiful system that we have, there's some price you have to pay for that. But in the Army, it's easy. Obviously, I never joined the Army to get rich.
What?
And my middle class home attests to that, and I'm very lucky and thankful for what I have. But you don't do it to get rich. You don't do it. For me, it was a higher purpose. I've been a student of history my whole life. I was that geeky history guy throughout my childhood and in college, and I just kind of the purpose of the survival of our great democracy experiment was something that meant a lot to me, and I wanted to be a part of that. I loved it. I loved every aspect of even the warts of our country. I found something positive to take away from those warts, that we have in our past as a nation. But I wanted to be a part of that history, and a real tangible part of that history. And of course, when I enlisted or when I signed my contract in '98, I didn't know 9/11 hadn't happened yet. I didn't know the world I was going to step into. But man, it hits you quick. You want that as a child, and you hear about it, and then when it happens, it formulates you a bit different. But yeah, so that was the journey that had got me into the military, and then subsequently out of it, and it was brought me back in, to get back to your earlier question in a very long-winded way. But that I think the purpose was the biggest thing I was missing, the biggest piece of the puzzle on the outside, as it were.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think that's pretty common. I mean, that from doing mentoring at the Battle Within and stuff.
Yeah.
We see that constantly of people that have been separated, either voluntarily or non-voluntarily. That's one of the big things that a lot of people point to is the lack of purpose.
Yeah. Or
because they don't feel like they're contributing anymore, so
right.
It leaves a void.
Yeah, it's very real, and you're right. I mean, I too have anecdotally hear it, and you tangibly see it, especially in that microcosm of the Battle Within environment. And I, I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, but I can only imagine, what transpires in the brain when we're feeling that void of purpose. And I guess. To quote Joseph Campbell, who I learned extensively about through the Battle Within, and I'm thankful for having been exposed to him. He talks about follow your bliss, and I guess maybe as those of us on the other side now, and after my career, maybe I can insert the phrase bliss instead of purpose, right? So, find my bliss, and that probably is the pathway to your purpose as well. Just putting more maybe civilian speak,
Right.
and that's helped me quite a bit. And like I said, I'm new to retirement relatively, but that's one of the things I'm still searching for is where is my bliss. And so it's not easy. It's not easy to find your bliss or your purpose. But it's out there somewhere, it's something. But yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if it was easy, it probably wouldn't be the problem that it is.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
if it was
battle
just
within wouldn't exist. There's a
yeah,
lot. Yeah.
yeah.
Very true.
So let's talk about, we'll get into what led you to the battle within here in a minute, but I want to touch on leadership before we get into that. So we've talked a lot on this podcast about servant leadership and putting your people before you and making sure that they're taken care of.
Right.
I mean, what are your thoughts on that specific aspect?
So it's funny that you start there with servant leadership, because that's exactly where I would start. And this was not obviously rehearsed. But let me start here. So, having been in leadership positions the extent of my Army career, in varying degrees, it took me probably the better part of 15 of those 21 or so years in the military to understand what my leadership style was. And I think I undersold to myself the value of defining that. And part of it was when I was getting some advanced education, I studied management, which is, leadership in a different way. And there's obviously a distinct difference between managers and leaders, but I got exposed, through Army education and through civilian education on different leadership styles, and it was interesting because I was like, wow, there's a whole study, and I just never put as naive as that sounds, I never put the perspective on it, and that was fundamental to me to learn leadership styles. And then I went through the soul searching, like, who am I as a leader, and that was really valuable to me to learn who I am as a leader. And even reflect on the past leaders I've had, and he was that type of leader, or she was this type of leader, and that was valuable too. As you take away the little bits of those experiences to kind of better your leadership capability. But my pathway led me to defining myself as a servant leader, and I'm not going to espouse that there's one's better than the other. I mean, in many cases, it's situational.
Yeah.
There's times where I might have to be a more of a direct leader, especially in, like, say, a combat environment. Then that servant leader. Not that aspect of being a servant leader disappears, because obviously it's malleable to the situation, but and you well defined it. So, for servant leadership, is it about me or is it about the people I lead? And, you can't, in my mind, you can't have the philosophy of they exist for me as the leader. It has to be you exist for them, right? And I think that's the beauty of, and I'm going to always say the Army because that's my experience, but the military writ large, is we do exist to serve our subordinates. It's especially in the modern military where my promotions are more structured. I'm not probably going to get a battlefield promotion for charging a machine gun nest like it's World War II or charging earthworks in the American Civil War. That's not going to happen as much. So I literally exist for them, right, and to accomplish their mission. Right. That we collectively have been given, and man, that's a heavy lift if you espouse that philosophy of servant leadership. And there's an often misquoted saying that it's misquoted to Napoleon Bonaparte, and he said, respect the burden. And that's something I learned about as a junior officer, and I've always kept it somewhere in the back of my mind. And again, I don't know the origins of it. I don't know what it was intended to mean when it was said by whoever said it. But I've always taken it as like my mantra for servant leadership, right? Respect the burden.
Yeah.
And the burden is the subordinates that you're here to serve for the greater purpose that you're serving. And in retrospect, that wasn't very helpful to be respect the burden, because that burden was pretty damn heavy. You know?
but also it changes your frame of mind, because, and I agree with that, because nothing gets done without those quote unquote subordinates.
100%.
Like
Yeah.
with, nothing gets done without my firefighters. Like I could consider myself the best captain in the world and show up on the scene and be like, oh, we need to do this and do that and do this other thing. And then if it's just me, nothing's getting done.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
very little is getting done.
Yeah.
I have to have a team that I can say, hey, I trust you guys. We've trained. I know what you're going to go do.
Yeah.
Go do it. And I don't have to supervise you to go, like, especially with the way that we run. So I'm on a truck company. So I have one firefighter with me, and we go inside. My driver and the other firefighter, they're going to the roof. So I'm not directly with them, supervising them. I have to trust them that they are going to do the job that needs to get done without me going, okay, let's go do this now, and holding their hand.
Yeah.
So, and I would assume that it's the same way in the military, especially whenever the further up you get, because there's so many layers.
Yeah. It's funny you say the big T word, the trust, right? You can talk about trust all day, but until you're in a situation, whether it's a fire, whether it's a firefight in the military, but man, what the value of trust, reciprocal.
Yeah.
I trust them and they trust me.
Yep.
They trust that I'm going to make the right decision that could or could not have an effect on their life. And likewise, I trust that they're going to accomplish the mission. And that we build that trust over training, over camaraderie, and you cannot underscore the value of trust. And again, that's maybe something that I learned too late in my career. The value of the big T, and trust is tremendous from a leadership aspect.
Yeah.
100%, especially as a servant leader.
Yeah. And it's all the little things that you do as the quote unquote leader that builds that trust.
Right.
And I talk about this with my guys all the time. Like, I'm never going to ask them to do anything that, number one, I either haven't done or am not willing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that goes a long way into building that trust. And they know, like, I'm in a great situation where I'm at, where our battalion chief trusts us. He knows we're going to get the job done because we do. Like, anything he asks us to do, yes, sir, we're going to go do it. Or I'm going to say, hey, we need more resources or whatever. He knows that he can trust us to do what needs to be done. And likewise, my guys see that. And, it works out well for everybody.
Right. And let me ask you this. The world of the firefighter is something I've admired for years. In fact, I didn't share this, but when I got out in 2008, my first stop was to take the civil service exam for the New York City Fire Department.
Oh.
That was literally my first instinct, was get out of the military and become a firefighter.
Yeah. It's a common path.
Yeah. And it was probably a lot of those things we talked about, right? Like, man, what a purpose,
Yeah.
what that brotherhood and that camaraderie, the stuff I knew I was probably going to miss in the military.
Yeah.
But anyway, and then I tried a few different outlets for firefighting, and it just didn't seem to work out, I guess. So I went a different route. But let me ask you this. For the military, especially what makes us very unique in the United States Army, the United States military in general, is the non-commissioned officer, right? So your senior enlisted individuals, and man, number one, I credit every NCO that's ever been a part of my life with developing me into who I was, and who I became. But what a great gateway into building trust, especially at initial credibility, right? And that NCO is that conduit between you and the individual formation, the privates and the specialists, the corporals, to help bridge that gap, into trust.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's a similar.
So it's not a specific rank. And I would almost say we've kind of almost lost that.
Wow.
But so the way that at least every company that I was on coming up in the fire service, we had a senior firefighter. And usually that was somebody who would have, like 5 to 10 years on as a firefighter. And the captain would deal with the driver, who was like that second, leadership position or whatever. But the other 2 firefighters, if they had an issue, they go to the senior firefighter. So
okay.
Probably the equivalent of like corporal or sergeant, something
Right.
like that. So it was an unofficial type thing, but that's how I came up in the fire service was, you have your 2 firefighters who are just, they're the muckers or whatever you want to call them. And you got your senior firefighter, then you have your driver, and then you have your captain.
Okay.
So, and it, it's just those levels, and you expect, and I try to run my company the same way of I have a senior firefighter who's got, I think 14, 15 years on now. And whenever I got there, me and him sat down and I had a talk and I said, hey, look, this is how I've seen things be successful. And I want to emulate that and do it the same way. I said, I expect you to be, for lack of a better term, I expect you to be my ace. And if there's something that needs to be handled, I expect you to handle it with the other 2 firefighters. So if you see something that, you think we need more training on, or there's something that is going on, I want you to try to handle it yourself. And part of that is he's about to get promoted to captain here within the next couple months. And so I'm super proud of him for that. And he's ready to take that next step in leadership. And one of my other firefighters, he's getting promoted to driver probably within the next year. So super proud of my guys for stepping up into those leadership roles.
Yeah. And you actually just hit on 2, aspects of quality leadership that that are probably undersold to a degree. One is developing your subordinates, right? And then, I always found the best way to develop my subordinates was to empower my subordinates, right?
Yep.
And that also, builds trust,
Yeah.
right? It goes right back to trust too, right?
It's a circle.
Yeah. And it's funny how that works, right? But man, the beauty, like you just described, isn't it like it's a beautiful thing to watch the development of others. Yeah. And a true servant leader really gets off on that, right? Like, like I'm so proud of some of the individuals that I've led through the years and watched them, in many cases, surpass me. And man, that's it's such a cool thing. Like, wow, the student is now the teacher,
Yeah.
and wow, you've gone way beyond where I've ever went in the military and done more than I've ever done, achieved more than I ever done. But it's such a great feeling. And that's, maybe that's some of the selfishness too of servant leadership is I get that benefit, right?
Yeah. And I think that's okay though. I mean,
100%.
Because it is it makes you feel good, but also it's that whole idea of leave it a little bit better than you found it type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm sure you've heard the saying, how do you steer a Navy ship or whatever? It's like 1 degree at a time, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to change the culture of something, or you want to put something into place that is going to be long-term, a change, that's how it starts. Is you change your little corner,
Right?
And you have people that spread out from there, and they take that change with them. And then before you know it, it's a cascade ripple effect to where that will go through the whole organization.
Yeah.
At least hopefully.
Yeah. And you're right. We have and Josh and I joke about this quite a bit actually. And we just had a discussion on this last week when we were mentoring together at the Battle Within. Improve your fighting position. And that, and I say that I try to remind myself of that even as a retiree. How are you improving your fighting position today? And I know you had Josh Schneider on this podcast as well, and another thing that Josh and I talk about was something that Josh Snyder told us when we went through our cohorts, and 1% improvement every day.
Oh yeah.
Right. And I tell myself that now as somebody who is in charge of nobody but myself and 3 dogs. I don't have to be in charge of anything, but damn, I better be in charge of myself now. Right. And what am I doing to improve that fighting position every day? It's so funny how you could take all those tenets of leadership and your career and apply them in multiple aspects. And what a great benefit is when you're able to do that. Wake up every morning and say, okay, how am I improving my fighting position today? And that could be, hey, I'm going to meditate today. That's that 1% incremental improvement that I'm going to do today. Or I'm going to take Josh has me really into Epsom salt baths right now. So so that's like, that's my accountability to myself now, is what am I going to do today to improve my fighting position? And today it's going to be a damn Epsom salt bath.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's going to make me a better person. And that's my purpose, I guess, in life now is to improve myself. So,
right.
But I was going to, if you don't mind backing up for a second, I was going to share with you an embarrassing but informative experience of mine. So when I was newly commissioned officer, I was sent down to Fort Knox, Kentucky for armor training. So I was commissioned an armor officer. So back then, the armor school was at Fort Knox. We had our own kind of residence. It has since been merged into the Maneuver Center at Fort Benning, Georgia. So, but it was at Fort Knox, and I went through my little lieutenant training and whatever else. And then my first duty station was supposed to be Korea, and I would have been a tanker in Korea, most likely, or M1 Abrams officer. But with the war progressing rapidly at that point between Afghanistan and Iraq, so this is like 2003 now, they offer this cool incentive, which I'm sure they still do at lieutenant school, where you can trade your assignment with somebody else. Just has to be a mutually agreed upon thing, and you can trade assignments. And I had this really cool former non-commissioned officer turned officer whose wife was a non-commissioned officer, and she happened to be stationed in Korea. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking, like, as a, whatever I was, 22 years old at the time, like, I don't really want to go to Korea. I kick myself now because, man, what a great experience that would have been. Yeah. But I was like, I don't want to do that. And this guy was like, oh, I'll trade with you. I really want to go to Korea because my wife's there. And I said, where are you going? And he's like, Fort Polk, Louisiana.
I grew up 30 minutes from Fort Polk.
I don't think I knew that. Oh, man. So
my dad was stationed there. And so
get out of here.
Yeah, whenever he got out of the Army. I did not
know this.
Yeah, when he got out of the Army, we just stayed.
So where? Like DeRitter or?
No, Hornbeck.
Oh, okay.
So right by Peace and Ridge, where you guys went out and did your maneuvers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do gunnery out at Peace on Ridge. Yep. Yeah. That's so funny.
I used to walk from my house onto Peace and Ridge and watch them doing maneuvers.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. That's so, what a small world. I literally had no idea. So that was my first duty station. And wait, what a great place, right, for a single 22-year-old man to be stationed.
Said no one ever.
Yeah. It's funny as a student of history, obviously an amateur student of history, I always thought it was fascinating to study the guys, especially right in the antebellum period, right before the American Civil War, that were stationed out in these remote outposts out west. Mm-hmm. And it was so boring. And they're young men. It was so boring for them that it was all the toxic behaviors came out. Yeah. They were alcoholics. They went through depressed and melancholic states. And that's why I like history so much. I can go back and identify with so much of it. And I'm like, I guess that was my Fort Polk experience, was like stationed out in the Western frontier in the 1850s. And I went to all the bad things. I was like, let me do everything that's harmful for myself while I'm here. because there's nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And important part of my experience and my journey. So not to discredit, and I had I met some of the best people in my life while I was there, and had some really. I learned a lot about the Army there as well. But so I get to Fort Polk and I arrive. My orders were to go to the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, which was a covering force designed for a corps. So the 18th Airborne Corps, we were designed as a corps covering force. So mostly reconnaissance and surveillance. So we were very light. We have to keep up with the 18th Airborne Corps, so we're light by design. So I get there, and my unit is not there. So I sign in, and my unit is forward deployed to Iraq at this time. So they were part of kind of that second push after the initial invasion with the 3rd Infantry Division. It was kind of like 1st Armored Division, 2nd ACR, and other units that I can't mention off the top of my head. So they were already there, and they had been there. Oh, geez. A decent bit, probably like 8-9 months. It was a 12-month deployment. So that's the world I walked into. And so I get there and they say, and they're like, hey, you're going to go forward. We just got to get you through some basic training, as it were, and some medical and whatever else, and issue your kit, and you're going to go off forward. Yeah. And I said, wow, so it happened so quick. So I didn't even live in a house. I lived in a hotel. All my stuff I put in storage because I knew it was temporary. Yeah. So it was within some ridiculous amount of time. It was probably like 30, 40 days of me getting to Fort Polk. Mm-hmm. I left Fort Polk for Kuwait. So I get to Kuwait, with a bunch of other replacements, officers and enlisted guys. And I was a replacement. So I joined my unit forward and they were in Baghdad at the time. So I go forward and join them in Baghdad. And by this point, things had stabilized quite a bit in Iraq. The initial invasion was over, and it was just kind of this autopilot mode that we were in.
It was before the insurgency really ramped
Correct.
up. And all that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was just real like steady state operations, we say. So it was kind of steady state, like you wake up. And for us, we were escorts for the Coalition Provisional Authority. So ran these CPA escort missions all around Baghdad and sometimes even further out into the countryside and sometimes as far south as Kuwait. But we go through these missions. So it was, very methodical every day. So I show up and do some more kind of introductory welcome to theater kind of training stuff, meet some people and what my unit had done. So typically there was 4 platoons in the cavalry squadron that I was going to. And what they had done for some flexibility is they cut 2 of the platoons in half, which were scout platoons. So they were larger, the scout platoons. The TOW platoon stayed as is. A TOW is a anti-tank guided missile. Those stayed as is, and then the scout platoons were cut in half. So that opened up 2 more platoon positions for a platoon leader. Mm-hmm. So, so I got my opportunity fairly quickly to become a platoon leader. But I share this story because that was the leadership environment I walked into. So seasoned combat veterans, they had been there. They've seen a lot together. They grew together and I'm this like really, really green second lieutenant coming in. Mm-hmm. And I had like Coke bottle glasses, the birth control glasses. I mean, I probably definitely didn't look the part. And I didn't know how to walk the walk. I mean, I didn't know myself, let alone the military very well at this point. So I remember, I'm walking into this environment and I'm like, holy smokes, like talk about building trust. Like you got to do it quick because you're in combat. Either that or you just get discounted, right? And they just do whatever they're going to do. And then you lead to like, that's where war crimes happen. I mean, there's a whole litany of things that could happen if you don't approach it right. So man, I walked in like, and I think I stumbled into servant leadership now at this point because I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. Like, let me just trust them, I guess. Yeah. They know better than me about this environment I'm in now. So anyway, I remember the like first time I met them and and I laugh at it now. For some reason, this is what I thought to say. I said to them, hey, other than the usual, I said, hey, I'm from New York, so I'm very familiar with city environments. So I feel like I'm going to be good for you here in Baghdad. Something to that effect. Like, what does that mean, right? But that's what I felt like saying at the time. That's what came out of my mouth. So, because I'm from New York, I'm comfortable in a city, which means I'll be good for you in combat in Baghdad. Think about the logic trail there, but that's what came out. And I didn't get any weird, to their credit, awesome bunch of guys. I didn't get any weird reactions or anything. They were probably like, I can only imagine what they were thinking. Half of them probably tuned me out by this point. And the other half that were listening were like, definitely tune this guy out now. But man, that was kind of like my introduction to leadership. I didn't know. I went to military college, a leadership laboratory, if you will. I learned some theory of leadership. I'd experienced leadership in college in leadership positions, but I didn't know what leadership was. And it's funny, as you look back on it, you're like, oh, I was doing servant leadership, or I was, doing this and that. Yeah. But those were all like fundamental to my growth and development. But man, and I don't take this wrong. I don't, there's no woe is me here, but man, what a introduction to leadership I had,
Yeah.
like thrown right into the fire essentially. And I got a good 2 months with them doing these steady state operations. And then, all hell breaks loose with the Mahdi Army militia and the uprising. And, we were thus extended at this point. So it's a second leadership challenge. These guys have been here nearly 12 months now. And I have to go deliver the message that, hey, you're going to be here another 30, 60, or maybe 90, maybe 120 days. Who knows? And I had to deliver that message. And it was hard coming from a place I was like, I've only been in theater 3 months. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm single. I don't care. But it was hard to deliver that message. So, man, I went that very short leadership experience of my first deployment in Iraq was intense. And I experienced the gambit of like things that could happen to you, if you will, throughout there. So super fundamental to my development, for sure, as a leader. But I always laugh at myself, which it took me, another important part of being vulnerable is laughing at yourself. Right. And man,
not taking yourself too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love retelling that story. Like, yeah, I equated Baghdad to New York for some reason.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong.
Well, true.
I mean, I've never been to New York or Baghdad, so I can just say, from what I've seen on the news.
No one runs into each other in Baghdad. That's the big difference.
Right.
New York.
Yeah.
Magnets on their bumpers.
Yeah. Yeah, they are good drivers in Baghdad.
No one has
that's
insurance.
For sure. Yeah.
There's no repair shop.
That's true. Yeah, a little ding or two, and you just keep moving on. Right. It doesn't stymie the day. But yeah. Anyway.
Oh man, yeah, that's a pretty extreme, welcome to the NFL type thing.
Yeah, right.
So
like your first NFL game is a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
right.
Pretty much.
And that's how it was for me.
Yeah.
Like, oh, your first day in the Army is going to be in combat.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I didn't get shot at on my first day. I actually kind of did. So Karbala Gate. Is I don't know if Josh remembers Karbala Gate in Baghdad. So this was, again, before the big insurgency really, really ramped up, but maybe this was like planting the seeds of it. So I was stationed in the green zone of Iraq, and there was this, we were kind of on the edge of the green zone. And right by us was this Karbala Gate. So like an old monument built probably by Saddam. I don't really know. But an element from the 1st Armored Division was on gate guard here at Karbala Gate. It's kind of the entrance into the green zone where we were. And I remember, I think it was my second day in theater maybe, and Karbala Gate explodes from a vehicle-borne IED. And I don't know, not too far away. I mean, I'm not like on it, but I'm, a few hundred meters maybe away, and so that happened like fairly quick, and I was like, whoa, like this is real, this is like game on.
Yeah.
Super Bowl now.
Yeah.
And I don't even, I don't even know myself. Like I was saying, I'm still kind of trying to learn all this, and I remember like kind of running around, like, what do I do? Like, where can I help? Like an idiot.
Yeah.
I'm not assigned to a platoon at this time, so I'm like this extra second lieutenant walking around. Like, I didn't know what to do. But yeah, that was kind of like the. It reminded me with the analogy of like your first NFL game being the Super Bowl. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, it's no different. Well, I mean, it's very different, but it's the same idea. Like, when you're in the fire service, like we spent 3 months, 4 months, whatever it was, in our fire academy, and then you come out and you're doing on-the-job training, which means you're riding on the trucks and everything. Your first day, you could have the worst fire that the city's ever seen, and you have no clue. Because, I mean, as good as they are and as good as we are about teaching practices and principles and all of those things that we teach in the fire academy, until you are out there, there is no like training burn that's going to prepare you for a house that is on whoop ass and you're the first arriving pumper company. It's different. And then you're going in and, there's, reports of somebody trapped inside. So now that it's a whole different animal, and it's life and death right now.
It's, incredible. Yeah. What you guys do is, for us, it's like snippets of combat, maybe in your career.
Yeah.
But for you guys, I mean, that's a damn reality every day.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We can sit here and compare and contrast
Well,
all
of course.
day. I mean,
we do have 2 Army guys here, so you're outnumbered.
But I think that's what kind of actually makes us a little bit, the military and the fire service and even police officers, it kind of draws us all together.
Yeah.
And especially since, our country spent 20 plus years basically at war.
Yeah.
So you guys, the people in the military, almost all of you have seen combat of some sort,
right. Right.
Or a large majority has.
Right.
So there's a bigger understanding. So
yeah, it's a shared experience, right?
Yeah.
Like shared trauma, if you will.
Yeah.
Right. It may be defined, but the trauma is different, but trauma nonetheless.
Yeah. Trauma's trauma.
Yeah.
So, and I think, and I've had a lot of conversations about that of how it is different. It is, but it isn't. Like, I think mostly for you guys, and correct me if I'm speaking out of turn, but for you guys, it's, you're seeing people that your buddies getting blown up or shot or something like that. And that's more taking a toll. Whereas for us on the fire side, we're seeing citizens the worst day, we're running cardiac arrests, car fires, house fires, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But also at the same token is whenever I get off of work and I drive home and then I'm off the next day and I'm driving around, I go to the grocery store. Well, I just passed the house that I just did CPR in, 12 hours before.
Right.
So it's like, it's a little bit more consistent for us, those reminders.
100%. Yeah.
But I don't, it's for a large majority of us, it's not people that we know. It's just some random person.
Right.
It still takes a toll. But for you guys, it's more of, I knew that person and I trained with that person. And we have that a little bit too, because we have our, we have line of duty deaths and guys that get hurt. And so we have a little bit of that, but I don't think to the same level and extent that the military has.
But there's probably something healing about revisiting maybe that, so I'll use this analogy. So if you take an average veteran of Vietnam in say 1968, and they're patrolling in the jungle, getting in firefights, I don't think any of them ever thought they'd be back in Vietnam at any point in their life, right? Nor did America, politically, right? But now we're on good terms with Vietnam. and tourism's become a thing for Vietnam. And we have Vietnam veterans always revisiting Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
And I always thought about that because it's common with the World War II vets as well, right? Go to Germany, go, see these sites that were fundamental to your existence.
Yeah.
And I always thought it was weird. Like, isn't that re-traumatizing? But it's not. I think it's more therapeutic than anything. Which I don't know. Does that hold the same value of like driving past that structure that there was a big fire at, and then you have to kind of see it every day?
Well, I think the difference in those scenarios is time. So it's not, you give the example of World War II and Vietnam, like most of those guys didn't go back to France or Germany or wherever for 30, 40, 50 years.
Good point. Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
Didn't go back to Vietnam for 40 years or however long. And in the fire service, like you're in that community every day.
True.
You don't get to have that separation.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Now, does that make it better or worse? I don't know.
Right.
But
yeah,
that's for other people to decide, I guess.
Yeah. Interesting though, I'm Josh probably can attest to this, but I remember like being in Iraq and Afghanistan, and there's no way I'm ever coming back here, right? Like, but maybe, who knows? Maybe 20 years from now when I'm, older than I already am, that I'll be walking around some part of like Iraq that, I was fighting in, and I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you got a whole lot of political stuff that's going to happen before that happens.
Well, that's why I like the Vietnam analogy. Like, I don't think that would be the last place anyone thought they'd come back to. But look at us now, like the terms that we're on. So I guess you never know. You never say never. But it's funny. Like, would I even be interested in that? I come from a family of so my father's a Vietnam veteran. He has, as far as I know, no interest in ever going back to Vietnam. He left in 1970, and I don't think he'll ever cares about going back. Yeah. He was there 69, 70. I have both grandparents fought in the European theater of World War II. They never went back. They also lived, not long lives, so to speak, where things kind of became normalized that way, where you had veteran groups, funding people to go out there. But I always wondered, how helpful it might have been for them. And if the opportunity arose for me, would I do it? And what would that do for me? But yeah, you're right. I think you're right. Time heals all wounds. So it's easy to say when I'm several years removed from it, right?
Yeah.
Certainly not. Well, I guess in Josh and I's era of the military, you deployed. It wasn't like Vietnam where you did your 12-month stint and you kind of moved on. Yeah. We had to go back to back to back to back in several cases. So, I guess we did revisit that trauma quite a bit. And a lot of times, if you're in the same unit, you go back to kind of the same geographical portion of Iraq or Afghanistan for continuity purposes. So you may re-traumatize and see, oh, I remember getting a firefight here. Or I remember, one of our strikers blew up here, from a roadside bomb.
That puts a question that I kind of want to ask that I just thought of. So when you talk about deployment cycles and things like that, so the difference between World War II, Vietnam, and the War on Terror.
Yeah.
So in World War II, those guys deployed, and they were pretty much gone until the war was over.
Right.
Do you think, and this is an opinion thing, so do you think the War on Terror would have lasted as long if we would have had the same deployment as in World War II? Do you think it would have been?
Yes, and here's why. I don't think it would have made a difference. So a few things that we probably need to define. So number one, you got to remember, all volunteer Army now. Mm-hmm. So we don't have draftees in combat like we did in Vietnam and World War II. And when you really break it down, the average GI in World War II was really only in combat maybe on average 200 something days. And I'm misquoting that, I'm sure, but yeah, I mean, you think about it. So we didn't invade Europe until June of 44.
Right.
So if you're, say, in the 101st Airborne, yes, you trained quite a bit from 41, 42 in Georgia stateside. You did more training in England, but your big moment came in June of 44. And then you fought until the end of the war, which is what, April 45, something like that. So like just say a year. So it goes back to like you were really just in theater for a year, right?
Yeah, when you say it that way, it makes sense because I think in my mind I'm looking at the totality.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's definitely units and individuals that were in combat longer than a year, 100%. First Infantry Division is fighting in North Africa with some early Ranger battalions. I mean, way before D-Day. I mean, there's Army units that don't get nearly enough appreciation fighting in the Pacific for since 41. Especially the guys in the Philippines that fought. I mean, basically right after Pearl Harbor, these dudes in the Philippines are fighting it out already with the Japanese. So certainly people that were in combat longer. But I think your average GI in World War II, fought maybe about a year. So about the same. And then Vietnam, again, draftees. So you get this year, and obviously those guys had multiple tours in Vietnam, but your average draftee served a 12-month tour and was home. And then you get this all-volunteer force that Josh and I were a part of, and in the beginning it was this one-for-one cycle was the way it was, right? So like 1 month or 1 year at home and 1 year deployed. And that ratio changed constantly throughout the war. It was two for one at certain points, or it was all different disambiguations of that throughout the war. But always something we strove to get right as a military. To your point, and I think with the all volunteer force, it was helpful. From a tactical standpoint, because you did have a bit of continuity, like I was saying earlier. So if I'm in the same unit for, say, 4 years, I could potentially go to the same area of Iraq twice, say. So I may know the interpreters already. I know the lay of the land, most likely. I know, all the little side streets. I know everything. Well, not everything, obviously, but to a degree.
New York.
Yeah, right. It's just like growing up in New York, yeah. That didn't work out so well for me, but land nav in New York versus land nav in Baghdad, not the same.
Hold on.
Yeah.
You got to cut that. The officers in land nav, I've heard stories.
Oh, God, you don't even want to know. And I had an FBCB2. We're all way off track now, but I don't even remember where we were. But I had an FBCB2, which was like, this generational. It was cool in 2003, but it was this like
early
computer
force tracker.
Right. Yep, it was just like
time-space battle awareness.
Right. So in theory, it's it's a map, a digital map in your vehicle, and I could see other friendly units, and I could populate it if I see an enemy, and it builds situational awareness digitally.
Yeah.
But you could use it as a navigation tool. Man, it was cool stuff. So number one, and this was like bad. I was a terrible lieutenant.
Move the mic just a little bit away from your face. There you go.
His voice, like I was telling you earlier, the blessing and a curse, right?
Well, it's whenever you get to talking, it's
I
natural
get into
for
it. Yeah.
volume and stuff to raise. So no, you're all good, man.
But so in the way the cavalry works, at least my experience there as a lieutenant, you have what's called a senior scout, so a E6 in most cases. So he's like kind of the second ranking non-commissioned officer in your unit. So you have your platoon sergeant, and then your senior scout is usually the next senior NCO. So the senior scout is exactly what it says, right? They're the senior scout. So I'd always have my senior scout lead, and I'm in retrospect, it was probably a little my own fear of getting lost being that lieutenant that got lost. So I was always like, oh, yeah, Sergeant, my senior scout was a guy named Sergeant Baxter. Hey, Sergeant Baxter, you know, as I'm given the mission brief, like, hey, order of march, you know, always you. Because I think it was part of me like, I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't have a lot of confidence, I guess. So I don't think I ever had to navigate around Baghdad as the lead vehicle. And damn, if I did, my driver probably figured it out, not me. As a lieutenant, I had the benefit of having the most seasoned crew, if you will. Mm-hmm. So my gunner and my driver were very experienced guys. So they were pretty much an autopilot, so I can fight all four vehicles and not have to worry about fighting my vehicle. They kind of were an autopilot. So if I ever did have to lead a patrol or something, I'm sure that they just drove, and I never told them, "Here, take a left here, take a right." You know, it was kind of like they figured it out. So,
well, that's part of that whole leadership thing of setting your people up for success and letting them do their job.
Yeah. I think maybe you're right. I mean, maybe it built some credibility with me because I didn't come in like the know-it-all, which is a real risk. But like, I didn't come in like I'm leading every patrol and I'm doing, I. It was, for me, and that was, maybe I drifted too far on the other side of the spectrum. But for me, it was like hands off to a degree because I didn't know what I didn't know, and I just, like I said, I empowered them with a lot of trust quickly. But anyway, now that we're way off track. But back to your earlier question, I'm working on my mental agility, by the way. I can't even believe I remembered where we started. But back to your earlier question is, I think the model that we had throughout the wars on terror was the best we could have done, given the circumstances. And to the military's credit, we always worked on finding the right ratio. And of course, there's things you could pick apart in hindsight, but no, I think our recipe was pretty good. I don't think now that we know it lasted 20 plus years, it's definitely not feasible.
Yeah,
I couldn't have done it for.
Well, yeah,
barely past 15 months I could do it, let alone
until
the war's over, so to speak.
And that was the question of do you think the war would have ended quicker and all of that, but I think probably one of the main differences, and this is coming from an outside non-military perspective, is, World War II, you were fighting a country.
Right.
You're not fighting an insurgency per se. So, yeah.
100%. Even in Vietnam, there's the North Vietnamese Army. There's a conventional side of Vietnam that never existed for a very brief amount of time in Iraq. During the invasion, we defeated the Iraqi army fairly quickly, but that was only a small subset of the greater conflict. So, so that obviously makes a big difference, right? Because there's political forces going back and forth, and who's going to capitulate first, and you respond force on force. You respond to force with force, and eventually someone's going to submit, right? Just like cage fighting. And that's what happened with Germany and Japan, right, in World War II. So, never would have happened technically in the environment that became Iraq and Afghanistan, fighting a belief, not an organization, but you're fighting a belief.
So, which leads me to my next question: do you think that what's your feelings on capping combat deployments?
In what way?
Like, let's say you get 5 and that's it, or 3 and that's it.
I don't know. I mean, something I really haven't thought about. I don't even know. Maybe there is. I don't even know if there's been discussion on this topic, to be honest.
I've seen a couple different people talk about it. Nobody's really offered a solution. And I think part of that goes back to what you were talking about earlier of it being an all-volunteer force.
Right.
And let's say, at some point they did cap and say, okay, you've done 5, that's it, you're not doing any more.
Yeah.
Do we have the people to continue
Right.
with being able to take those people out of the rotation.
Yeah.
And especially since, that war was so dependent on, or it seemed like it from the outside, of special operations. Like, that's already a small group of people whenever
Right.
you talk about SF and the SEALs and CAG and all of those other, groups.
Right.
It's not a lot of people. And if you're capping them at, 5 to 7 or whatever deployments, like,
Yeah.
okay, well, now we're out of people and we have nobody else to deploy because they've
Yeah.
reached their limit.
Or
So-
you're going to just exhaust the force. You can
Yeah.
do it, but I mean, what's your return on investment at that point, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, there's nuances to this, right? So the special operations community, their deployments are very different than I'm a conventional guy. They don't do the traditional 12 months or 9 months or 15, whatever it is. Necessarily, theirs could be 30 days. It could be 60. I mean, it could be whatever it is. But that's a byproduct of the op tempo that they do, obviously. So in the special operations community, I mean, it's like nonstop. Once there, it's game on until it's not. In when they deploy, whereas for the conventional guys, we get some downtime. It's not necessarily 365 days of getting shot at. It could be, but generally isn't. But it's it's funny you say that because I have not reflected on it. I mean, I did 4 deployments of varying duration, and I felt like I had adequate time in between each. So I mean, maybe you feel the cumulative effects. But I remember you see guys in uniform, and I still go through this when I'm watching the news or something. You see guys in uniform, and you see their combat service stripes, and each stripe represents 6 months deployed. And man, you see some guys with like almost up to their elbow. Yeah. That's a lot, I am not up to my elbow. I have whatever it is, 5 or 6 of them, which even people think that's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it is, Ken.
But I don't know. I mean,
well, and the reason that I asked that question is because it's, and I'm not going to say I see a direct correlation, but there's been some talk about, the mental health aspect of the long-term deployments and multiple deployments.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, you could have this deployment where you go and it's Club Med, you're not doing anything, and then the next deployment you are getting shot at for
terror.
15 months constantly, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, where do we draw the line, and how does that start to affect people mentally whenever they're doing those deployments back to back, and it is extremely kinetic for a long duration of time.
Yeah, and I think and I was going to say, you're right. You're absolutely right. And we don't know, like, what is the next conflict? Is it going to be a big Is it going to be a big conventional conflict? You don't know. Or is it going to be an insert? I mean, who knows? So you could theorize all day. But the Army, to its credit, has gotten lean. I'm going to talk again, Army. We've gotten to be pretty lean. I think we hover around the 400,000 mark right now, active. Of course, we have a very capable reserve component as well. But active side, we're about, let's say 400,000 for the sake of argument. And I think we're, as a military, we're doing more with less well. And we have studied extensively the conflict in the Ukraine. We've studied the Nagorno-Karabakh conflict down between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and a few other select conflicts. And one of the things we've taken away with it is how autonomous the battlefield's becoming. Mm-hmm. And most lay people can see it just watching the news. It's all drones. Yeah. So we've obviously invested as a military heavily on that, and even the Air Force especially, like, they're going to have these unmanned aerial platforms. So instead of having like a squadron of fighter jets, you may have one individual in a fighter jet, and the rest of the squadron's these autonomous aircraft, and that all is economizing the force to achieve more effects on the battlefield, right? So if I can achieve high effects on the battlefield with less physical human interaction, there's always a human in the loop, but physically having boots on the ground in all places at all times, you're kind of helping yourself, I think, to your question.
Yeah.
You're reducing maybe some of that mental fatigue and that physical fatigue, and maybe creating a whole new set of problems from a mental health perspective, right?
Yeah.
Which we see studies on that, like how is a drone operator mentally affected by making the decisions remotely?
Yeah.
And it
Well,
has a huge effect.
Yeah. Whenever I went through the Valor program, one of my roommates in there, was a drone pilot. And just sitting there talking to him and listening to the stuff that, he did and the things that he was thinking about and all that, I was like, yeah, I don't want any part of that.
It's a different animal.
Yeah.
It is. I have a huge amount of. I used to diminish it. I was a typical Type A guy in the Army. I thought they were the guys that sat on the fob while the rest of us went out and did the fighting. But as you learn more, and as I met some in later portions of my career, especially when I was teaching, meeting drone pilots, Air Force Reaper pilots, and so on and so forth. Man, what a tough job. And it does carry a lot of weight, maybe more, because it's like you can what if all day there. But the second part of kind of what I was thinking to your question is, what's the Army reasonably signed up or equipped to do precautionary? So preemptively, how are we preparing individuals to go to combat is really kind of what I'm getting at. And is the Army in the business of preparing you, and I'm not talking kinetically preparing you, but preparing you from a mental perspective for sustained exposure to combat? So I'll go back to, say, the ancient samurai, right? And I love telling this anecdote at the Battle Within to individual cohort members. Before the samurai ever wielded swords and learned the trade of combat, they mastered the trade of their mind, and they learned things like calligraphy, and they learned haiku poetry, and all this like stuff that in the modern sense of manhood is like we make fun of, right? Like I'm not writing poetry, but man, how important it is to prepare your mind, to be able to sustain yourself in a very treacherous environment that is combat. So for them, it was a lifestyle. From the time they were children. You don't just kind of like stumble into it when you're 18. Like it's part of your upbringing, and there's cultures all over the planet that have the same kind of upbringing to mentally prepare you for that, right?
Well, not only the mentally prepare you for the combat aspect, but the after.
Exactly. Right. And that's really what I mean. I think is you're so equipped already that you have the tools to kind of work through that. And maybe that's an area where we could do better. Which would improve the things like you're asking, like would we even have to worry about maxing deployments or worry about ratio? I mean, of course we will, but if we're preparing the individual for the return and not making it a check the block exercise, but like really equipping the individual for the return, and not doing it at the return, doing it way in advance.
Yeah. It
makes a big difference.
Proper preparation prevents piss poor performance.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's kind of I think, that's kind of what you get when that's the way it is. And, Sebastian Junger talks about this in his book, Tribe. Mm-hmm. And I think, I'm not smart. I don't have the answers to things, but I think that's a huge aspect of what we're missing. And like I said, being a student of history, I reflect on this quite a bit. Like, the guys that came back from the American Revolution, what were their lives like after? What was their traumatic kind of responses after they got out of that situation? What were the stories of the Civil War veteran? I don't think we have the data, or we can probably make educated guesses off diaries and actions of these individuals after the American Civil War, but we don't have the scientific study behind it. How did they cope?
Right.
And I think it really goes back to a societal shift. Their society was different.
Yeah.
They grew up in small communities where you're surrounded by family. You're surrounded by friends all your whole life, the same people, and you come back to the same thing. And that provides a sense of that comfort that is, that we maybe don't have today. So a lot of it's a societal shift as well.
Yeah, you're right. It is coming back to that sense of tribe, because you're leaving the one tribe that you have fought and bled with for however long, but
Right.
you're going back to the tribe that you were with before.
Right.
And so there's that sense of home and comfort and all of that
Yeah.
you get, whereas the way that our society has shifted in the last 100 years or so, you don't see that. We have a
Right.
majority of our population lives in huge cities
Mm-hmm.
where you may or may not know your neighbors.
Right.
Like
Yeah,
you may or may not have family within 1,000 miles of you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Our nuclear families have
Yeah.
just spread all over the place.
And I think you're right. I think that has a part to play in how things have kind of shifted and turned out.
So I think maybe that's the answer to your question. Like, the answer isn't to put a number on it and say 4 deployments is it. The answer is way more complicated than that. It's how are we developing the individual? And some of that, I mean, it's not the military's responsibility 100%. It's a societal responsibility. If we're going to be a nation of warriors who go to war, then society has a part to play in that, to develop a class of individual that's going to go do that. And that's I don't know if anyone wants to sign up for that, as a society today.
Well, I mean, I can tell you just from my perspective from the past, let's say 5 years, ever since just before COVID, like we saw a huge dip in the amount of applicants for fire and police. And I know the military has had issues with recruitment.
Right.
So like the people that want to go do those jobs has continued to dwindle. Now we're better now, I think. Within the past year or so, you've seen those numbers kind of bounce back a little bit. But also, what I've personally seen from my department is we will have, cadet classes come through of 50 or 100 or whatever. And then, out of a class of 50, we're losing 10 before they're done with their first year. That never happened whenever I came on the job 21 years, almost 22 years ago now. Like, you didn't see guys leave, or people, if you want to be all inclusive or whatever. You didn't see people leave early unless they were injured. Like the rare case of, oh, well, my wife got this job out of state, so, I'm leaving. And typically they would leave and go to a different fire department, like wherever they were moving to. Now you see people come in, they'll do this job for a year, 2 years, and then, it's not for me, which is fine.
Right.
Because the job, being a fireman, being a police officer, being a soldier, is not for everybody. And, I mean, it's the argument of how you're going to know until you try it type thing.
Right.
But we didn't used to have that. It used to be, this is what I've wanted to do since I was 4 years old, and this is my career. And now it's just a job to people. It's kind of the way that I've seen things kind of go.
Yeah, and military doesn't, I guess we don't have that problem as much because, there's few careerists in the military. Which is fine. That's kind of what you want. But your major subsets, they do their 3-year hitch or whatever, and it's a gateway to bigger things in their life. It's a chance to learn a skill. It's a chance to get some education. It's a chance to get some opportunity and then kind of work from there. So I don't, that's the other thing is I don't think the military ever wants everybody that comes in to stay in, right? I mean,
right. Some of them you want to get gone
exactly.
quick.
So our problem is maybe a little different in that
Yeah.
respect, but yeah, some you want gone sooner than
Yeah.
others, but again, it goes back to like, and you're right, like we're finally, it looks like over the hump from a recruitment crisis standpoint, and those numbers are steady state again. But again, like if we as a nation want to be this, if we want to be Sparta, then we got to act like Spartans. If you want to be Sparta and be a nature of or a country of war, then you better start young.
Well, and it's not even to be a country of war; it's to be a country that's able to defend itself. So, talk about this a lot of, you don't necessarily have to be violent, but you should be trained to be able to be violent to protect yourself.
Right.
So, and we're going through that right now with my department. We're having a lot of like self-defense classes and things like that because we've had issues. We've had, a member killed and like all this stuff. And it's becoming a disturbing trend across the country. Like I put up a post probably 8 months or a year ago about it. And I just listed things from like the last couple weeks. I had like 6 incidences of EMTs and firefighters being assaulted, killed, stabbed, run over by their own ambulance. Like shit's getting out of hand. But we've never had to have that type of training to defend ourselves from the people that we're trying to help.
Yeah.
And now we are. So like
interesting. Yeah. And I know one of the incidents that you're referring to, and that was mind-blowing, especially as a civilian that I am, mind-blowing.
To say the least, it was mind-blowing. And there's a lot that went into that situation. I'm sure a lot of it will come out during trial time, if they make it public or not. But yeah,
it's not what you think you're going to get into.
I mean, like whenever I was fortunate enough that whenever I came on, I had a lot of senior people ahead of me that kind of took me under their wing and showed me a couple things of, hey, like whenever you knock on the door in this neighborhood, don't stand in front of the fucking door. Because, a lot of times when we're pounding on a door, we're knocking pretty hard. Well, it sounds like a cop knock.
Right.
And so, hey, stand to the side of the door, announce yourself loudly. Like our uniforms are similar-ish enough. Like this is a possibility that it could happen. It hasn't happened, but it's a possibility. So be aware of this stuff.
Right.
And so I always had that in my mindset. And we got away from that of, hey, we're just here to help everybody and everybody loves us and until they don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been punched, I've been kicked, I've been bit. Like,
right.
It's part of it. And a lot of times, like I got bit by a seizure patient. He bit my thumb. No, it didn't break the skin or anything. And he was not fucking cognizant of what was going on. I mean, he was in the middle of having a seizure and was at the edge of being postdictal. So he was fighting. He was coming out of it, and you've got 6 freaking dudes holding you down so you don't hurt yourself. And what are you going to do? You're going to fight because you're not all with it.
Right.
I get that. I 100% understand it. And we do a pretty good job of making sure that they're safe and try to keep ourselves safe as well. The situations that I'm talking about or that I'm not happy with are whenever we show up and somebody's on drugs and they want to get all handsy.
Yeah.
So.
Definitely something like, again, me as a non-firefighter don't have enough appreciation for sure. Probably, I mean, I don't know what could be more selfless than a person who's a firefighter, right? Like, what do you have nothing to gain from it other than helping others, right? So, completely selfless service, and to think that that's kind of how it can be reciprocated from a certain set of individuals is really mind-blowing to me. I always think about like the anecdotes of the New York City guys on 9/11 and, the survivors of the towers talking about how what the magnitude of the experience for them of walking down the steps and watching the firefighters walk up the steps.
Yeah.
And now knowing in retrospect that those guys all perished. But I mean, it could be no greater selfless act than that. And to think that that's how we could repay those individuals, like, literally, I'm not here to do anything. I'm just here to help you and save your life and save your property, maybe. And that's it. Like, there's nothing. I'm not going to arrest you. I'm not out to get you. There's nothing here. I just want to help you. Literally.
Well,
it's crazy.
Unfortunately, the individuals that seem to be perpetrating these kind of things are either, number one, they're on drugs, or they have mental health issues.
Yeah.
Which is on a sharp fucking increase in this country, but it's something that we have to be aware of and we have to take seriously. So, people that are in their right mind are not going to do that.
Of course.
They're going to be like...
I hope not.
You would hope not. But, by and large, we show up to places and people are happy to see us.
Right.
Because we're there to mitigate a problem. Mm-hmm. We're there to fix things or at least stop them from getting any worse. And that's a large percentage of the population. But we only deal with those people rarely. We deal with the problem people every shift, constantly.
Right.
And
and that's the stuff I think the public doesn't see.
No.
Right. And when we don't know.
Yeah.
But man, I couldn't imagine. I really couldn't. At least when Josh and I were in those circumstances of like the civilian population not treating us well, we kind of earned it to a degree, right? I mean, yes,
he's just smiling back there.
I'm in your country, number one, and number two, like, yes, I get it. It's the battlefield's very ill-defined here. I don't know who's friendly and who's foe, but here, I mean, geez, it's incredible. Yeah, incredible to think about.
Well, let's do this. Josh, why don't you hit the pause button? We'll take a little 10-minute break. We've been going for almost an hour and a half, and I have to go to the bathroom, so go out on your own.
You're doing a great job.
Some subordinates can't be developed. I mean, let's just be honest.
Hey, I took the online fucking Q course, so.
Yeah, I took the online SEER training, remember? So I'm SEER qualified as well.
Holy tell me that's not a real thing.
It is.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
100%.
It was during COVID.
Every deployment I've been on, I've had to do it.
Oh, man. All right. Well, we're back. We needed to take a little break. But
loquacious New Yorker over here. I talk too much.
I wouldn't say that at all. Like I said, that's what people are tuning in to hear. They're tuning in to hear you and things.
It's just a weird position. It's a weird position to be in, right? Like, and I remember when you asked last week at the Battle Within, you're like, "Hey, I'd like you to be on the podcast," and my first thought is, "What that? I mean, what do I have to talk about?" Like, I'm as vanilla as they come.
You know what, though, man? Everybody says that.
Well, I'm sure.
Everybody I've asked to come on this show, as they say the same thing. Well, what am I going to talk about? And I'm like, we're just going to sit around the table and talk, man.
Yeah.
We're going to, I'm going to give you, like I talked to you about, we're going to talk a little bit about leadership, and then we're going to talk about your story, because I think that's what people need to hear. And so,
Yeah, and that's, I guess we'll get into that then, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
a really good segue.
Yeah.
You're like a pro at this.
You don't have to kiss up, Ken.
You're the next Joe Rogan.
Way to
okay,
build them up and tear them down.
Yeah.
In one
Thanks for that.
Well, no, the guy's a master at what he does. I mean, regardless. So
that
you got to respect people that are good at what they do. So it's funny, like you like I get reminded often that humility should be an important part of my life, right? And it's funny because I always find myself to be a humble guy. I dress pretty inconspicuously. I drive a Honda. Like I'm pretty vanilla, like I said. So humility is super important, but so is vulnerability, right? And to be vulnerable, you got to tell your story. You got to tell your story a bit. Josh is giving me hand and arm signals off camera, by the way.
Going to the
and I don't know if he's
red.
telling me to take the mic away or bring it forward.
Well, don't ever bring it forward.
Fair enough. See, Josh, good NCO over there, give me hand and arm signals, and I'm the dumb lieutenant that can't decipher them. Like opening my Ranger handbook, like which one is that? I don't remember that hand and arm signal.
I tell you what. Next time that you come on the show, I'll move the whiteboard in here, and
Please.
we'll have the hand signals up.
Yes.
I do have a laser. I can just peg it in your eye every time you get too closer. When you get to the red, you'll feel it.
I've been that guy too. Yeah.
We can make this happen.
But yeah, so like, but to be like, you have to drop your guard a little bit, right? To be vulnerable, and you're not gonna like. Humility is a weird line to walk. Like, yeah, of course I want to tell my story, but a humble person, you're just, I did my thing, and a lot of people did it much more than me. A lot of people are much more successful than I was in the military. Most of my really good friends are still serving and are going to achieve greatness. But that, it's funny you say it that way, because that was a huge catalyst moment for me, was being vulnerable for the first time in my life. And so a little bit of background. So the last 5 years I was in the Army, I was a assistant professor of Army tactics at the Command and General Staff College. Phenomenal job, and education's always one of those things I wanted to dabble in. And so it was cool. Really, really great job. And you're literally growing the next generation of the Army. So what a cool responsibility to have. And I was, like we joked about way in the beginning. For years, I'd built up all these toxic mechanisms to deal with whatever was going on in my mind, and I didn't understand it. I just, thought it was who I was. Hey, I'm just an angry dude, or I'm a bad drunk. And I just thought, like, it's the curse of my DNA. I got, that's who I am, whatever. And it's just going to be the way it's going to be. And never thought about, like, maybe cumulative effects of combat, maybe cumulative effects of the lifestyle of being the guy who's the servant leader every day. But, there's a cumulative effect that has. And some people have a small cup and it overfills quickly, and some people have large cups and it takes a while to overfill. And I've learned in my life that I have a small cup, and my outlet when that cup spills over was very bad behavior. So throughout most of my Army life, I was the cool guy that went and got drunk all the time, and did dumb things. And what I've progressively noticed is, the drunk that I was in high school and the early aspects of my Army career in college was becoming a really dark person. And I wasn't a fun drunk to be around anymore, and I knew that. And there was always this switch that happened at some point late in the night. And I hit this switch, and I went to a dark place. And when I went to that dark place, it was really tragic for everyone around me. It was violent outbursts. I would throw furniture, for instance, if something aggravated me. I met it after my vulnerable point, which we'll get to. I had somebody open up to me and say something that made me laugh. And he said, Ken, I had to learn how to do drywall because of what a bad drunk I was. And I said, oh, shit, that's me. I'm the same thing. I've punched my fist through many a drywall before.
Yeah.
And tried to Google and YouTube how to fix it, So, man, I was like going down this road for years. It was just progressively getting worse. And I was too blind to really see it. And I have such a great support system around me. I have a wife who is years ahead of me. as far as like growth and maturity. She's older than me by years, but way ahead of me. And I joked about this with Josh last week. She had introduced me to so many tools that the Battle Within taught me years before the Battle Within taught me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, holy shit, she was way ahead of her time, as it were. So, I brought her along for the ride. I have a great mother and father that I brought along for the ride, my ride. I have a wonderful brother and sister and a very, small, select group of friends that are just tremendous people. And those were the people I was not only hurting myself, but the realization was I was hurting them. And my life was going in a direction that I was about to lose everything. I was about to be that guy that did his service to his country for 30 years, but I was an alcoholic, I was divorced, I had huge health issues, and I hear those horror stories all the time. Well, that was the road I was going down. And it crescendoed it was, I think, 2002, so not too long ago. And while I was teaching, I got to the point where I became like comatose is the best way I've described it, and the best way I was trying to describe it to therapists at the time. But I shut down. My mind stopped working effectively. I couldn't. I felt like every time I was talking, it was laborious. Like I couldn't talk well. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't. I felt I was in this weird, like tingly space in my body. And I was just like shutting down. Like I was like getting decomposed by nature. And it was my own nature decomposing me. And I said, holy, it's funny. I made it through the first hour and a half not cursing, and I've already like let out several. But I was like,
I didn't even notice.
But I was like, holy shit, like this is different. Like there's something's happening that's not normal for you. And I had dabbled in trying to help myself in the past. But it was me trying to, blunt force trauma myself into fixing something, right? Like, and I was naive. I didn't know. I was ignorant. I didn't know what to do and how to do it. And I was still uncomfortable with opening up to even my own wife about what I was experiencing. And I'm an all in, all out guy. So if it didn't work the first time I did it, I was done with it. I never gave anything the opportunity to try to work on me. So like my wife's like, she gave me these mala beads with a breathing straw on them years before I went to the Battle Within. And I was like, I would use it and I'd be like, this shit ain't working. I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. Like I'm a 40-year-old man breathing through a bamboo straw. Like I'm better than this. That is how I thought. Like this shit ain't working. So I would give up on things easily. But then I got to this moment where like I went comatose and I was like, holy smokes, like something's going on here. And so I did the most unnatural thing I could think of at the moment. And I sent an email to my two supervisors at work. And I said, hey, I don't know what's going on, but I can't function. And I don't remember the words I used, but it was something that I felt like I can't do this. I can't do my job right now. I'm sorry. I've went my whole life like being, I do anything. Yeah. And I give it 100% and I just couldn't do it. And I started to reach the point in my mind, I was like, I'm going to start hurting the organization. I'm not going to help the organization at this point. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to email two people I trusted and damn the consequences. So I emailed them and they were like, holy, like, Ken, why didn't you tell us? Like, of course, take a knee. Like, you're not irreplaceable. Go take a knee. And graciously, these two individuals in my life, supervisory positions again, gave me time to go do whatever it was I was going to do. And I had no idea what I was going to do. I just knew I couldn't go teach every morning. Like it was too much of a struggle, and I wasn't helping my students, and that's not what I didn't want to be a detriment. So I had this time where it was like, and there was no rush. It was no like, hey, you got till this day to fix yourself and come back. That didn't exist. It was like, take as much time as you need. Come back when you're ready to come back. so I go through these guilt stages during this period. Like I'm getting paid to sit here and like figure things out. Like, do I show up to work, or are they cool with me just sitting at home, like trying to figure things out? And so I had to kind of get through that as well, like add on to that stress I already had.
Well, I mean, and that's totally understandable because you've spent the last however many years doing stuff with a purpose.
Right.
And now you're
Right.
at a point where you need to do something, but you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find the purpose.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and I'm surprised we haven't touched on it, but we like to always say there's this stigma in the Army about getting mental health, right?
yeah.
And sure, that exists. You know where it exists? In between your left and right ear.
Mm-hmm.
That is where the stigma resides. I found in my personal experience that the stigma is not there, and if it is, then you're under toxic leadership.
Yeah.
And
Well-
if it wasn't that stigma, it'd be something else anyway.
Yeah.
Toxic's going to be toxic.
Yeah. Well, and if you think about it, like how much money and time has the United States Army invested into you?
Right.
Why wouldn't they say, okay, we're going to invest a little bit more to make sure that we can continue getting a return on our investment instead of,
Exactly.
right. Just write them off and we just lost all that investment. So
Exactly. Yeah.
if you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah, because it is a business at the end of the day, right? You've invested millions to make me the warrior that I am, and yeah, you don't want to lose that investment. You're absolutely right. So I got an overwhelmingly positive response from my two leaders about taking care of myself and prioritizing that. So I was like, what do I do? And so what do I go? I go back to where I'm comfortable, right? And we all do that. So where I'm comfortable is history. And I said, I'm going to go explore historical sites, and that is going to provide me some mental relief in my mind. So I've always been fascinated with Lewis and Clark, and I love living in this area because it's the origins of the Lewis and Clark story, go right through us here. Yep. And I was like, I'm going to go up to Atchison, Kansas, and visit the spot where Lewis and Clark spent July 4th, 1804. That's right here. It's 30 minutes away from my house. So I went and did that, and I'm out in nature, which is another place of solace for me. And I was like, I'm going to, so I was trying to be proactive and do something about how I was feeling, but there was still something missing. And I'd go home and it would just overwhelm me immediately. And my coworker, my teaching partner at work, just a extraordinary human being. He had sent my class that year that I had to take this kind of opportunity to develop. He had sent my class early in the year an email of resources and said, hey guys, if you're, here's some things to do in the Kansas City area. Here's some resources that might benefit you, whatever. Pretty good email. And I don't know what it was. But for some reason, that email came back in my mind. And this is 6-7 months after he sent it. So, I'm a good Army officer, so I have thousands of emails that I haven't deleted. So that I may or may not need.
You sound like a fire captain.
Yeah. I'm like, I may need this email in 4 years, so let me keep it. So I had the email. But I don't know. There was some force that provided me this email back in my mind. So I go back to this email. I'm like, let's look at what resources Greg, who's my coworker, provided. And on there was the Battle Within. So, 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon, he had a friend who went through the Battle Within, and it was very much helped by it. So he knew about it anecdotally, so he threw it in the email. So for some reason, maybe it's the title. It's a catchy title.
Yeah.
So I said, Battle Within, what is that? So I went, and I don't own a computer, as Josh loves to laugh at. So I went on my...
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, I don't own a computer.
His phone's
What?
not a computer.
My wife does, but my phone is my computer.
My bad. I said that out loud.
True. But I don't own a laptop or a tablet, let's say that, more specifically. So I'm on my phone, I'm like, Battle Within. And I was like, this is cool. I read about what it was, and I was like, it said it was the 5-day Revenant journey, and I was like, well, I got time. The Army doesn't. My leadership knows that I'm not going to be working, so I guess I have the space to go do this. Whatever. And it seemed cool from what I read, and I submitted the very quick screening application online. And I think it was like a day or two later, Adam called me from the Battle Within. And I had a good, 10, 15-minute conversation with him. And I remember this is when like crisis mode started again, because he's like, I forget what month it was, but he was like, hey, I got a cohort with openings. And it was like, 3 weeks from the day I was talking to him. And I was like, whoa. That's a little quick, like, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet.
Start making excuses real quick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking to myself, like, I need some more time. And so I found this, like, but I compromised in my mind, and I found this middle ground. So, like, not too soon, not too far away. And I remember telling my wife, like, hey, I signed up for this is when it is, blah, blah, blah. And I remember telling my wife, I was like, I can't do what Kenny would normally do, which is like plan it far out and then back out of it somehow. Find a way to back out of it, and I always give myself maneuver space to back out of something. And that's where, I was like, and I'm not going to do that this time. So I showed up, on that Monday, and I remember that. I still remember the drive there, and Josh has his own experience with his drive that he shared with me. And mine was a little different. Mine was, I was like dead on the drive. Like I had it was weird. I had no expectation, no anxiety, nothing. I was like dead. Like I got to do something. And I remember just driving, and it's a fairly short drive for me. But it's a good scenic drive. So I was kind of reflecting, like, I was kind of just felt like whatever, and then I showed up, and, I had that instant reaction that I think many have, is like sizing people up, in the cohort. Like, I'm the most fucked up here. For sure. Like, I've had more deployments than anyone in here's had. I don't even think I was smart enough to understand that it was not just military veterans, that there was going to be firefighters. And I had a medical doctor who was an EMT doctor in my cohort. And police, I had a whole gambit. And, so I was like typical type A reaction, like I'm the most fucked up, and I've got the most trauma, and, so I was shutting myself off already.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept having to, like, my mantra that week was always reminding myself, like, be in it. Like, this is your opportunity to do something. Like, just everything that happens, be in the moment while it happens. Shut all those thoughts down. And that's how I got, that's how I was those 5 days. And I literally just embraced everything. My black book that I was issued on day one, I was voraciously taking notes. I was soaking everything in. If Adam or Jamie or anybody told me to do something, I was doing it. Like, go journal. Yes, I will journal tonight. I just did whatever I was told to do. I was like all in the experience. And man, I took, that was the best thing I could have done, is number one, to show up, and number two, to open myself up to the experience.
Yeah.
And I had my, your viewership's probably varying degrees of familiarity with the Battle Within, especially the 5-day Revenant journey, and they've heard from Justin Hoover before. But day 2 is a formative day in the Revenant journey, and that's, where you do your group process. And I think I was the second person to go that day. And the first guy that went was all in, and he set the tone. And I said, I'm all in. That's what I thought. And I just let it out. I let it all out. Like, I was as vulnerable as I could be in that moment. And as honest as I could be about things that I didn't really want to be honest about, the things that I was embarrassed to say. And I broke. So I go through my group process, and I was actually done with it, and I broke. I just the swell of emotion came, and the tears started swelling, and I've never been a crier. It never was that guy. So my first instinct was like to get out of Dodge. So I got up out of my chair and walked out because I didn't want anyone to see me cry, and I bawled my eyes out. And I had one of the mentors with me, and he just stood behind me. I knew he was there, but he didn't say anything. He let me have my moment, and I just couldn't. I was uncontrollably crying. It was like the swell of all the emotions and all the baggage coming out. And then eventually one of the clinicians found their way out there and again, just let me have kind of my space and have my moment and help me kind of work through what I was going through. And that was like a pivotal moment for me. And I was already having a great experience and it just that after that, it just like, it went to overdrive, how great of an experience I was having, and how much I was getting out of it. But I tell you, like, I've had a wonderful life where I've got to experience some awesome things, and it's funny how 5 days of my 46 years of life could have such. I mean, I would never, I would literally never have thought it was possible to a 5-day event would have such a pivotal impact on all the things that I've done in my life. But man, it did. It's so weird. I can't explain it. It's something I can't, I'm at a loss for words, but those 5 days have meant so much to my life and have been such a pivotal turning point in my life. And it's just 5 days.
Yeah.
And it's, of course, it's not just about the 5 days. It's about all the stuff I've done since then as well. But what a pivotal moment, like for me, a powerful moment in my life, and it's caused such a powerful impact. 5 days have had effects that have greatly exceeded what anyone could imagine 5 days could do for you. So I was on the journey at that point. And I was all in again, but I was all in a different way.
Yeah.
But this time I'm all in, like I'm meditating, I'm doing yoga, I'm doing mindful, I'm doing everything. To the point where it was like, you had to kind of find your spot. Right. And I was all in, and then I kind of had to back off. If, things atrophy, you get back into your life, and, those things are the first things to atrophy. Yeah. So I've always like had this tug, this tug back and forth with, turning it on, going back to my tools. And it's an evolutionary thing, right? And there's no problem to solve that's attainable. It's a process it's a never ending process. But man, life, has been a hell of a lot better every day since. But maybe the most important aspect of this whole thing that I really wanted to highlight is, I get back and I finally get back in work and man, just to go another rabbit hole real quick. One of the hardest things post-journey was, post-Revenant journey, was to go back in the classroom.
Really?
I had these instant feelings of like, what do the students think? Like, where did the lieutenant colonel go for the last 30 days? Well, I forget how long I was out of the fight, but it was like 30, maybe even 45 days. But that's what I'm thinking. Like, holy smoke! Like, if I was that person in the class, I'd be like, where did Lieutenant Colonel Moran go? Because I didn't say anything. I just disappeared one day.
Yeah.
And they had a replacement instructor, and that was hard for me. And it was I was going back to who I used to be, right? Like, they're going to see me for who I am. And like, I was having all the wrong thoughts about it. But so 2 things. So to get back on track here, overwhelmingly positive response from my students, no judgment at all. Completely different reaction than I had expected. Mm-hmm. And what a gracious group of individuals. How supportive they were of me, how much they wanted, how much they loved me. And they didn't have to. I was their instructor for 12 months. I was a very small subset of their life. But man, what love and gratitude and grace they showed me. And I ended up opening up to them. I said, hey guys, here's what happened. And that's got to be, number one, it's probably tough to listen to. You're a major and a captain, hearing it from a superior officer. That's got to be kind of tough to listen to. Tough for me to deliver. But man, it had such a positive effect for me. And I found out that it affected the students too in a positive way. And I had students come up to me and be like, that was the most honest, gritty leadership example I've ever had. And we don't think you're like weak because of it. In fact, we think you're stronger than we thought you were. And I had, people the students share with me like, sir, I struggle too with with corrosive behaviors and whatever it might be.
Well, it's not to interrupt you,
No,
but
no.
it's seeing somebody in that position of leadership who will take the steps to get healthy is a good example because, all of those, the captains and majors and stuff that you were teaching, a lot of those guys, like you said, probably having the same thoughts, the same behaviors. So it's very normalizing of, hey, I'm not the only one, because this, like your brain will lie to you and say, I'm the only one. And you said it before, I'm the most fucked up. I've done this, and all that stuff. Like, but no, you're not. And then for you to be the example of, hey, I went and got help. I went and did this. This is what worked for me. And I'm sharing that with you guys.
Right.
So now this person that's sitting over in the corner who was in the same spot you were at 6 months ago, 8 months, however long, can go, you know what? I think I can. He fixed himself. I can do the same thing.
Right.
So.
Yeah. And it's, so what was harder? So I thought that was pretty damn hard for me to do that. Just personally. What was harder though is when I did it with my peers. It's one thing when you're sitting up there and I'm regardless of how open I am and vulnerable I'm going to be to you, I'm still in a position of authority.
Right.
I'm still wearing a rank that's higher than yours. I'm still your teacher. So I have this positional and authority over you. Even though I'm putting myself in a vulnerable position, there's still a level of comfort inside of me because I know I'm in charge, right?
Yeah.
So what was even harder was doing the same with my peers, which probably is the hardest of the three. I did it obviously up front with my leadership to get myself the space. I did it post-Revenant journey with my students. And then I had to reconcile with what do I do with my peers? Because the same thought was in my mind, like, where am I? I'm not in my office. I'm not in my cubicle or whatever. I'm not in the halls. Like, where did he go? And I work so the unique thing about the Command General Staff College is a mix of civilian, retired military, civilian, and uniformed Army guys. So, but we're all like lieutenant colonels and colonels. So peers nonetheless. And I said, shit, how do I deal with this now? And I wanted to be vulnerable. Like I wanted to make that part of my journey because it's something I was never good at. And I said, I'm going to be good at this vulnerable thing. And so the best way I found to approach it at the moment was I sent an email to my department. I got my little email distro list for my department and I sent this email. And I said, hey, here's me, fully open. We joke, and there's a saying in the military, it's called open kimono. I was open kimono, like, here's me. Whatever you want to do with that, here's me. Like, if you hate me because of it, if you think I'm weak, if you think that I need to go leave this job, whatever it is, I don't care. Like, this is who I am. And this is what happened to me. And I remember like kind of phrasing it like, I I just wanted to be open with you about what I was experiencing. And I also want to make it open for you to hear it from somebody because you may be struggling with something yourself. So I wasn't, my goal wasn't to normalize or like be this, beacon of hope for anything, but it was selfish to a degree because I just wanted to be vulnerable to help myself. But I'll tell you, again, surprised reaction. So my department, I don't know how many people were in it, a lot. And I was surprised at how many people reacted, all positively. Anyone who reacted negatively, they didn't do so vocally, so I don't know. They could have just been a thought they harbored. But man, people came out, and I was told by two people that I respected quite a bit and cared quite a bit about, that I worked with, that that was one of the most courageous things that they had seen. And I was like, no, I mean, that's not very courageous. Like, I've seen some courageous stuff, but I guess courageous in a different way for them. And they were like, that took a lot of strength to do what you just did. And I was like, man, it kind of felt the opposite. And I felt kind of weak writing it. And I did it through email. I don't know if I'd mentioned that, but
Yeah.
that was the best way I found, was just, I'm going to send an email. So some people responded to the email. Others came to my office or my cubicle and said, thanks, or I'm here for you, so just a really positive reaction. And I don't know, again, maybe people did harbor strange feelings about me, but it was so freeing for me.
Yeah.
And I remember maybe the first week or so, walking around the office or going to the coffee maker, I'd have my head down a bit, like a little embarrassed, like trying to avoid people maybe, like, man, I just let everybody know everything about me. Like, like, what are they thinking? But I think over time, like, I walked even prouder over time.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? I've got nothing to hide, If you want to call me weak, if you want to call me a negative word, whatever, that's your own battle. But I'm damn proud of, like, my journey at this point. And I'm damn proud that I went and did something proactively, and that, and I'm not going to be a statistic. At least I hope, in the future, the statistic that too many of us have seen, whether it's a victim of suicide or a victim of my own corrosive behavior killing me, or just killing myself medically, with all the anxiety and stress. But I felt, I walked taller, I think, after that. And that's been a big help for me personally, is vulnerability. And that's maybe one of my favorite aspects to kind of talk to. And it did wonders for me. And again, I still have a long ways to go. And, the battle within, the motto, the path is the journey. And I'm on the path.
Yeah.
I'm definitely on the path, but man, the journey's long way to go still.
You hit it right bullseye earlier whenever you said it never ends. Like, it's for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And it's the next day and the next day and the next step and the next step. And I think for some programs that kind of gets lost of, and for some people, they have this mindset of, well, I'm going to go do this retreat, or I'm going to go to this therapy session, or I'm going to do this, and it's going to fix me. Well, yes and no. Like, what's going to happen is you're going to acquire a set of tools. It's up to you to use those tools, and you're going to have to continue using those tools. Right. It's like, I don't know if you're a car guy or whatever, but like, let's say you own a 69 Charger or something. Guess what? You're going to be working on that thing every fucking weekend.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's, you gotta maintain it. Like, it's about maintenance.
Right.
And it's the 1%. Doing this thing this day, and then the next day you're going to do a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. It never stops.
Yeah.
And if you don't put that work in, then where are you going to be? And you already know where you're going to be. because you've already been there.
Oh, I've seen 1,000 people like myself,
Yeah.
especially in the military. And most of their stories don't end well. But you're absolutely right. Actually, if I can interlude for a moment.
Absolutely.
You said something that made me laugh. So you said, I don't know if you're a car guy.
Well, I mean, you drive a Honda Ridgeline.
Yeah, I do. We didn't have to say Ridgeline in public, but it's a Honda.
Damn.
Nonetheless.
It's
a Civic. It could be a Civic. It just happens to
That's
be a
not better.
truck.
One of my brother-in-laws has a Honda Ridgeline. It's fine.
Hey, it's very fuel
Way to make
economical.
him feel better there.
And I could drive around Kansas City like no other. I don't know if to try to fight for a parking spot. But you know, one of the as I've kind of studied amateur-wise, studied whatever was going on with myself. You know, so I was diagnosed with. I ended up, you know, sticking with therapy and things like this afterwards, and I was officially diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder from things overseas. And one of the things that I learned unscientifically, I'll provide this information, but is that, you know, combat is, there's these like 1% hellacious moments, right? 99% boring, 1% sheer terror. And that 1% is always what we're seeking. And I'm talking 1% in the opposite way now, right?
Yeah.
We're always seeking to replace that terror because the adrenaline rush is so real. And it's like a drug. And I can't explain it. And I'm sure Josh understands exactly what I'm saying as a combat vet, but that 1% adrenaline rush that you get in combat is like a super drug. And what I've found is that as part of like PTSD for me was like, how am I going to achieve that high again? And that is the negative outlet that a lot of veterans find themselves seeking. How do you find it? Some people go seek it through drugs because that, you know, the closest way to replicate that high is like through a drug. So they go seek it through a drug, or they go seek it through alcohol. So I was seeking it through alcohol, was part of it. But man, the infidelity is another big one.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is big like adrenaline rush you get out of like doing something dirty behind the scenes. So that's, again, you're trying to replicate this event from combat of an adrenaline high that you want to find again in a normalized environment.
Yeah.
My chase of adrenaline, this is the most bizarre thing, was cars. And I'll explain. So leading up to that moment where I committed to the battle within, where I went comatose, I went through an 18-month period, no exaggeration. I bought and sold 6 cars in 18 months. And now I was seeking some high. And I was, again, it was the worst parts of my personality, trying to seek a high and being all in, all out. So I was like all in on getting the biggest truck I could find. And then I'd drive it around for a week and be like, this is big. Like, holy shit, it's really difficult to park. Like, this doesn't feel like me. And I said, well, I got to go, what feels like me? And I'd go to like the next extreme. And I went through this cycle 6 times in 18 months. And what I found in retrospect was like, that was a warning sign for me of like thrill-seeking behavior, they call it, you know.
Yeah.
When you take these mental health surveys, they're, you know, are you doing risk-taking behaviors, or are you like excessively thrill-seeking? Well, you know, I'm not jumping out of a plane without a parachute, so I'm always like, no. But then I had to reframe it and said, holy, that's exactly what I was doing. Yep. Risk behavior financially, thrill-seeking, trying to find the next best car for myself. But it was all trying to replace this high that I had gotten in combat that I, for some reason, longed to get back. And that was my outlet, was cars. And it's funny that was one of the things they keyed in on at the Battle Within. And so in my keepsake box, they put a little Matchbox car in there. So every time I open my keepsake box, I have to remind myself of that moment. So So to make fun of the Ridgeline all you will, but I've had it.
Therapeutic.
But yeah, but I've had
Jeremy.
it.
Fuck your work.
I've had it for 3 years consistently.
I'm very proud of you.
So I am proud of my Ridgeline because it signals a growth for me, actually.
There you go.
But I'll tell you, there's not a month that goes by where I don't have that moment driving down the road like, ooh, car dealer. It's still in there.
Yeah.
And I have to remind myself, like, that's going backwards, dude. Like, just be with what you got at this point because, you've been there. Let's not go through that again,
Yeah.
But I can laugh at it now, but wow. Like, what a try. And I can only imagine my wife, who, after a while, was desensitized to it. She's like, I remember the look on her face sometimes driving home. She'd be like, what the hell is in the driveway? I'd be like, oh, that's my, that's my Chevy Silverado today. And she just gave up after a while, like, whatever. I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But she even, so that was her way of saying, like, dude, you're out of control right now. And I didn't see it that way. I'm like, what am I hurting?
Yeah.
I'm just getting cars. I'm not cheating on you. I'm not wasted. I'm not going to find meth on the street. I'm buying cars. Like, that's harmless. But it wasn't.
Yeah. Well, and it's even the most, like you said, the most generic thing of, going to get cars or working out or anything can be taken to extreme to get to that high,
Right.
Of the, combat or whatever you're trying to get.
Right.
You can take anything to the extreme.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty prevalent in our populations. That type of behavior is because of the type of personalities that it attracts, because it already attracts those type of personalities
100%.
anyway.
Yep.
The 100% all in, all
Yep.
out,
Mm-hmm.
the thrill seeking, that kind of stuff. I mean, how sane are you really if you're going to run into a burning building or you're going to run at somebody shooting at you?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
you're already a little unhinged.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to put it in a funny, haha way,
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was my weird outlet in that world. I mean, I had plenty of other outlets too, but the one at least I can laugh at now that doesn't bring back so many bad memories. Like the alcohol is one thing I don't finally look back on. That is all negative memories. I'm glad to be over that hump, but at least the cars I can kind of laugh about now.
Yeah.
But it was the gambit, man. From the biggest truck you could imagine to a Mini Cooper.
Yeah.
I had a Mini Cooper.
I mean, we're going to make fun of you a little bit for the Ridgeline, but if you were still driving the Mini Cooper, I don't know if we could be friends.
It was a great car, man. Talk about a little zip on that thing. I felt like I was like Mr. Speed Racer. And I never really had performance cars like that. And
Never
I'm calling
has
it a performance car.
No,
Yeah.
come on.
It was created for rally races in
Josh,
Europe. It's a
back me up.
performance car.
Was it pink?
It was green, actually. It was classic. It was, I believe it's called Racing Green in the dialogue of European racing. So, but it was a zippy little car. I actually liked it quite a bit.
You do you.
For about a month, I liked it.
You should get it back. I think
did
so.
get it. Yeah. Don't even remember what I traded that one in for, but something unmemorable, obviously. But yeah, it was like this whole gambit. It was so super weird. But at least I could laugh about it. But yeah. But I stopped that. That life's gone. I gave up on alcohol, which is it's funny. I would this might benefit somebody listening. Adam last week said something that I haven't been able to get out of my mind, and he said alcohol is rocket fuel for anxiety, and I was like, holy shit, he's right. Like that was a huge secret sauce for me, is to stop drinking, because I didn't even realize how much it was fueling my anxiety, and it was like this perpetual cycle. Not to mention all the other bad behaviors, and every bad experience in my life somehow relates to alcohol, directly or indirectly. And when I realized all that, I was like, what am I doing? Like, so that was huge. And that's still a struggle. I'm not perfect, by any stretch of the imagination with it. I am still fallible, and I'm a human. But again, it's back to that, like, I wake up every day and try to tell myself, well, how am I going to improve the fighting position today? And if that means I go another 24 hours without alcohol, then that's part of that 1%. So still something it's not easy. It gets easier, certainly with time, but yeah, it's cool to talk about now that I have gotten beyond some of those things.
Yeah.
And at the time, you never think you're going to get past it. You really don't. I thought I was destined for that, that lifestyle. And, I to get tangential for a second, but I think it was Josh that kind of spurred this thought in my mind last week. A lot of credit to Josh, obviously, throughout this. He's my silent accountability partner sometime. But I thought about I had my one grandfather was in the 29th Infantry Division in World War II. He was in B Company, 115th Infantry, a replacement. So I always go back to that, like, oh, my granddad was just like me, a replacement. Except he was a private and I was a second lieutenant. But he was an infantryman in World War II. And he didn't do the D-Day invasion, which B Company 115th was in part of the initial D-Day landings. And they got, a lot of casualties and terrible experience for them. So I can imagine that, like, he joins this unit not long after D-Day, and they've already got this shared bond of that tremendous experience, tremendous experience, and he shows up as a replacement. So anyway, he ends up getting wounded somewhere on the France-German border as they started moving further east. And he gets shot in the leg by an MG-42. So his war was relatively short in the grand scheme of things. And he's, I remember as a child, like, he had this weird walk, and now I know why, because he was wounded. And my dad used to joke, like, I remember playing with your grandfather's Purple Heart, which had long been lost to history. But my dad remembered it as a kid, like, oh, it's a toy, but it was his Purple Heart. And I remember, and so my grandfather had a very traumatic life, grew up poor in New York City, never was able to really hold a job very long or well. My dad grew up pretty poor, and he had a huge alcohol problem, my grandfather. In fact, he died on the street, had a massive heart attack, like in the threshold to some shop in New York City. Like, I think it was a deli or something. But he would just go to the bars and do off-track betting, and but I remember now I think about it quite a bit, and I'm like, I can only imagine what that guy was dealing with.
Yeah.
And how, if he had the Revenant journey, for instance, or anything, how different his life might have been. And part of it provides me, it makes me sad, because I'm like, oh man, how tragic. And part of it makes me happy too, because I'm like, you know what? I can think about that and grow from that, and I don't have to be that, and that's the road I was heading down. And, but man, I can't, as I bring it up, I can't get over the sadness, but, how different his life might've been, if he had maybe had some help. And I don't know if he had PTSD. I guarantee he did. I don't know 100%, but I'm sure he did.
Well, I mean, that generation.
Right.
Like,
Great Depression people, they grew up with they're tough.
Yeah.
They're not going, completely
So,
different.
I mean, hindsight being what it is, and now the things that we know now, I mean, it provides understanding of, you can look back and think about, okay, these are the things that they went through, and this is probably what was going on in his head, and these are the things probably that he was dealing with, and it kind of gives you a little bit of understanding of why they did the things that they did, and made the decisions that they did.
Yeah.
And it super sucks, and it's really fucking sad that we weren't able to take care of our veterans better then.
I will say though that one of the things that they have, they're really the World War II generation. I'm going to hit on specifically is those guys were like all in on like VFW and American Legion, and that was like back to the discussion before about tribe, is I feel like they always had they surrounded themselves with a tribe, even after their short experience was over with, because most of them were draftees, so it was a very short part of their life. But then they were they stayed with that tribe, and in World War II when it's a preponderance of the male population fighting, everyone around you is part of your tribe to a degree.
Yeah.
Like most everyone around you fought in Europe or the Pacific just like you did. Yeah. So so they had a lot of that as well that maybe we don't have, which was tremendously helpful. And I would love to see the statistics, but I'm sure like American Legion and VFW numbers are just really small with our generation of veteran specifically. I don't know why that is. I mean, I have my own personal feelings, I guess, on why I haven't joined either organization, but maybe that is part of the answer for some people, like just having that brother and sisterhood again with shared, people of shared interests and shared experience. And that generation was really good about those organizations,
Yeah.
So
I don't know. It seems to me, and again, this is an outside perspective, so you take it with a grain of salt. I've seen a lot of veterans, specifically from the GWAT, who are not necessarily ashamed of their service, but want to distance themselves from it, and it's very much reminiscent of Vietnam. Of a lot of those guys came back and wanted to distance themselves because it was an unpopular war and they weren't treated well, a lot of them, whenever they came home.
Right.
And I don't know that necessarily that's the case with a lot of, modern veterans.
Yeah.
I don't think that they've had to endure that type of treatment.
Oh, I think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I think we are a society that reveres veterans right now.
But for some reason, a lot of people they're what's the right word? Disenfranchised.
Yeah.
Like,
part of it could be it's too soon.
Could be.
Like, time has created some fondness.
Yeah.
So for some of it's like, I just need some time away from that, But which is weird. Like, if that is the case, it's weird because we are in a society that has not been this welcoming or understanding of veterans, since like World War II.
Yeah. This thought just kind of dawned on me, and it kind of goes back to that whole shame and guilt thing that we've talked about. I don't think we've actually said shame, but it's that I didn't do enough, or I wasn't, I could have done more, or whatever, and
survivor's guilt for a lot of people.
Yeah, survivor's guilt for a lot of people. Like, and instead of leaning into the support systems that are there, like, they lean the other way. So, and then also,
that's probably some truth to that.
I mean, also, even though there are a lot of resources for veterans and first responders right now, a lot of it, even though, like, if you're in that space, you know about them. Like, about the battle within, about this group, about that group.
Yeah.
But if you're not in that space, they kind of fly under the radar.
I agree.
They're not out there forward facing.
I agree.
Everybody knows about them.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody
I
knows.
certainly didn't until that 7 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. I knew somebody that knew somebody that went to it. So otherwise, I was the same way. Completely ignorant that stuff existed.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy that was still in uniform.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't know that I had the ability to go do stuff, But I don't know. And there's probably a little bit of truth to all of this. One of the things we didn't talk about that was, I think, part of my trauma was the idea of moral injury.
Yeah.
And I know for a lot of us in the global wars on terror, a lot of us carry a great deal of moral injury.
Well, and that's something that is becoming more understood now. More recently, it's becoming a field of study, and they're really starting to dig into it.
Yeah,
That's my wife is doing a bunch of stuff with that, and
it's a fascinating topic.
yeah,
And especially when you're fighting, for us fighting a asymmetrical threat, similar to a lot of the guys in Vietnam that weren't fighting necessarily the NVA, but if you're fighting the Viet Cong, same thing, this asymmetrical threat, and I think that is going to lead towards more instances of moral injury for the combat veterans because it's a very, the battlefield isn't very well defined. I'm not shooting at a guy in a German uniform. That's pretty clear cut.
Yeah.
Not to say that there's not moral injury that occurs in World War II, because there's plenty of it, but generally speaking, I think our combat experience creates more of it, just by nature of how and what we fought.
Yeah.
But that was my thing too. Was my biggest rock I carried was a moral injury of a soldier of mine who was grievously wounded by an accident, and he was my driver. So, and this was about 2 months after I was in Iraq, right before the Mahdi Army militia uprising, and things got really crazy. But we were just like on this routine kind of escort mission, and he decided we were in like escorting some dignitaries to this old palace, and it had a little shitty pool, concrete kind of pool, and we had been on the road, for days, and in our tin Humvees, and he wanted to go just jump in the pool, and I'm fuzzy on how it happened, but he jumped in the pool and is now paralyzed from the neck down because he hit his head. It was a very shallow pool that was murky, so you couldn't tell. That one is the biggest thing that I carry with me. Number one, I loved the guy. He was such an inspirational person for me as a brand new lieutenant. He was my driver, and he took care of me. And he was such a good person, or he still is. I don't know why I say that. But I carry that one more than anything. That was the one thing that it was very hard for me to ever get past, and I'm still nowhere near past, or I've been able to reconcile any of it in my mind. And that's my moral injury that I carry, which carries the most weight.
Yeah.
And it wasn't through anything that a typical person would think would be a combat scar.
Yeah.
But that's mine. That's mine.
It is, though, and it makes sense, especially whenever we spent the last hour and a half, 2 hours talking about servant leadership and things like that. Whenever you have somebody that works that closely with you, and then they get injured in that kind of way, that makes total sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, it was a huge developmental moment for me as a leader because, I took a lot of guilt on as far as my lapse of leadership led to the event, right? And that's how I would always game it in my mind. Like, I was not a present leader at the moment, which, I could have stopped it. All those things what if.
Yeah.
But I took that burden, back to what I said about Napoleon, respect the burden.
Yeah.
That burden I never well respected, and it bit me in my ass, on many occasion, and it still does. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's maybe the under discussed part of servant leadership.
Yeah. Well, and I do it too, and I did it. I think whenever you were a mentor, whenever I went through the battle within, I don't know if I talked about it because I had just moved to be a truck captain and I was a safety officer before, and I was taking on way too much responsibility for everybody else. That yes, technically I'm responsible for them on the fire scenes, and on emergency scenes. Like, I'm the one that's supposed to be walking around making sure that, they're not doing dumb shit and they're staying safe or whatever. But also at the same time, you have to reconcile it in your mind at some point that these are adults. They have training. And if they're doing something, and the nature of the job by its in and of itself is dangerous. Like, we don't do safe stuff,
Yeah.
There's nothing safe about cutting up a car. There's nothing safe about going into a burning building. There's, we're in danger all the time. But I was taking way too much responsibility for guys. You have to let them do their job. And they're going to do dumb shit and they're going to get hurt. And you can mitigate that to a certain point, but at the end of the day, you can't hold everybody's hand.
Yeah.
And you're going to
You're
have
absolutely right. Yeah.
you're going to have freak accidents that happen.
Right.
Like I was talking, I'll give you an example. So whenever I was a safety officer, I was on A shift. I think it was, were they C shift? I think it was C shift. There were a couple companies at a car wreck, and it was a nothing car wreck. Nobody was hurt really, but the car was damaged. And one of the guys had the idea of, well, we're going to bend this bumper or fender or something out of the way so the car can be drivable or whatever. Well, he wasn't wearing gloves. He didn't have safety equipment on, and everybody's just kind of standing around. And the battalion chief who was in charge of the scene, we were talking about it, a couple days later, and he's like, I had the thought to tell him not to do that, to put gloves on. He goes, and I didn't do it because it didn't seem like a big deal. And the dude cut his hand so bad, he almost cut his finger off.
Wow.
Like, it was hanging by a piece of skin.
Wow.
So he had to have reconstructive surgery. All this stuff was out for extent. And he recovered. He came back. But it's something that small where I should have stopped him. And I didn't, because it didn't seem like a big deal.
Yeah.
How much responsibility can you take on yourself? Because that guy knew, don't do that if you don't have gloves on. Like, there's only so much. There's only so many rocks that you can put in your backpack and carry.
Right. But this is why you have to understand as a leader that there's a responsibility that comes along with that, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool to have the title. It's cool to have the glory and the prestige that comes with being in charge of stuff. But you better be prepared for all the responsibility that it encompasses as well. And I think that's why we beat ourselves up so much over it, right? Because it's like, man, I have a responsibility, and this happened under my watch, and it's it's hard. It's very hard.
It is. It's not easy to let that stuff go. Yeah. Not at all.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm at least at peace relatively with it at this point, but I'm not sure it'll always be a part of me, obviously, and it'll always resurface to a degree, especially when I go, when I start drifting down the path of negativity again. That thought, that moment of that snapshot of my life is always going to drift back in. But back to like what you said earlier, I don't have the excuse of not knowing how to handle it anymore, right? So at least I have the tools now to kind of get through that.
Yeah.
In whatever productive way, not counterproductive, but get through it in a productive way this time. Every time they do resurface, but I have to acknowledge that it's never going to go away. It's always going to be a part of my psyche. It's always going to be a part of me, that event, and it's really how I deal with it is the difference now. So, but anyway.
Well, and it's giving you, like, those are formative events. And they shape who you become as a person and who you continue, because we all evolve and change. Like, you're not going to be the same person tomorrow that you were today or that you were 6 months ago.
Right.
Like, and I think that's kind of a common misconception of, I'm dropping all kinds of crap. Let me just throw it on the floor.
Too much stuff, true.
So, like, that's a common misconception of, I'm struggling. I'm dealing with all this stuff. I just want to get back to who I used to be.
Right. Yeah.
You're never gonna,
Yeah.
You're never going to get back to there.
Yeah.
And why would you want to? Like, as a person, you continue to grow and change and evolve and try to become a better person throughout the course of your life.
Yeah.
You don't want to be stagnant.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just my own.
No, I know
like,
what you mean. I mean, there is some value though. Adam talks about Carl Jung talking about the self and the ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fine line, and that's how I always look at it. Like, I always want to get back to like that. For me, I remember when I was a young child in New Jersey, I would sit in the stoop, and I would wave to everybody that walked by and say, "Hi, friend." And my mom recounts the story,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember like it came up during my group process, and it's something that Adam reminds me of a lot. And I'm always kind of like in a positive way looking for that happy kid again, because I'm not that. I hate people. I don't wave to anybody. Now, why? I don't know. But it's not. I'm not like, "Hey, friend." Like, I'm like, "F you, guy." But I want a piece of that still,
Yeah.
And I think as I go through like my journey, I'm like, was that my true self, or is my true self like this angry like curmudgeon dude? Is that the true self, or is that my ego? Like, and that's it's a really good problem to have. But I'm still working through that as well. Like,
Well, I think it goes back to what I said of we continue to change and evolve through our life experiences. So it's not that that kid who was waving at everybody isn't your true self, and it's not that the curmudgeonly fuck you guy isn't
Yeah.
your true self. It's a blend. And
Yeah, true.
And I'm the same way. Like, I don't like people, but I think for me personally, it's because of the job that I've done. Like, because I've seen the other side. I've seen the side of society that most people don't see, or they only see it on the 10 o'clock news.
It's not up close and
It's
personal.
they're not touching it. They're not smelling it. They're not dealing with it.
Yeah.
And I've seen that, and yeah, it can definitely, if you are not careful, it can skew your view
100%.
of society.
Yep.
And
The combat vets, we have the same problem.
Yeah.
My whole worldview changed after Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
When you go to a third world country and you see such terrible things, it'll change your entire perspective on the world. And that's hard to work through. Like, I just lost all faith in humanity for a period of my life. Like, this is all a fucking shit show.
Yeah.
Like, and that's how I felt. Like, none of it matters. It's all a big shit show, and it's just the way it's the way it is, But I resonate with what you say extensively, because I went through the same, and I still go through it. My worldview is very different than it ever was. But yeah, there's which wolf do you feed, right?
Yeah.
Both were responsible for making me who I am. Both were responsible for keeping me alive when I needed to stay alive.
Yeah.
But which one do you feed? To go back to the battle within analogies. But,
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I 100% get that. 100%. Josh?
Yeah. No, I remember during when Ken was our mentor in our group process, and I remember when I spoke there, and I was the guy. I was the angry guy, kind of, just a little bit, not a lot.
What?
But yeah, I just remember Adam saying, "What does that remind you of?" And I remember Adam said a tiger, and then Ken said, "No, a dragon." And I've taken that with me through my journey of the dragon tried to kill my inner child, but he didn't. And so I always thought of it that way, that like there is no joy in Josh, there is no happiness. And so that was something I took with my life, carried through my life. And so now, though, I'm like, I need both sides. I need my dragon, but I also need the child.
Yeah.
And so just like you guys are saying, which one do I want to feed depends on what situation I'm in. I can't get rid of my ego, because my ego kept me alive through some tumultuous time periods. But it can't be leading the show all the time, because then that makes other shitty times in my life where I'm like, what the hell just happened? It's like, oh yeah. So yeah, it's a very fine line.
Yeah. Man, I remember that moment too in your group process. It's funny, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny to see you guys, in a different way, I guess. and helpful too.
Yeah.
And I was going to say that earlier. Like, obviously, I'm an incomplete specimen, but at least I'm on the path. And part of my path has to be like when I go back and give back for mentoring. And selfishly, I get probably more out of mentoring than I can give. But that's so helpful and therapeutic and healing, not just for like the cohort people and for me to be a part of that, but to watch like you guys, whom I saw on both sides, and that's hugely important as well, as far as like the healing. But it's awesome. It's awesome to like see you guys now, as this and see your growth and where you've come. So it's so cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Well, and I think that's a unique aspect of the Battle Within, of having people come back and, former students from the cohort come back and be mentors.
Yeah.
And then you're being a mentor with the people that were mentoring you.
Right.
And it's like this kind of, it's a little bit weird at first, the dynamic, but then you kind of get over that and it's like,
It works. Yeah.
It works great.
It's like like you're developing your own,
Yeah.
I was like, first time I went back, like Joel was one of my mentors.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went back to mentor, Joel was the lead mentor and I'm mentoring with him. And it's like, wow, it's like but it's like, it's this evolutionary cycle, and that's how, in my opinion, that's how you're going to sustain something like the Battle Within, right? You need to kind of evolutionarily have that with the graduates of the Revenant journey, for the program to remain what it is and and to survive.
Yeah.
Is the give back, and that kind of like generational growth give back.
Yeah.
Like there's a piece of Joel and me, and for you guys, there's a piece of Joel and there's a piece of Ken.
Yep.
And then, whoever you guys have mentored, there's a piece of Joel, Ken, and that's just going to like in perpetuity continue. And that's the way it's always going to survive and maintain, what it is. And it's kind of beautiful to think about that way. But, there's it's just like us as people, like there's a piece of our forefathers in us still,
Yeah. It's
good
that
stuff.
Shared collective experience.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, we've been going for 2 hours and 41 minutes.
Is this
of
your longest
actual
podcast
recording
ever?
time? No. Damn. Believe it or not, no.
On my competitive side, wanted it to be.
Well, if
I can keep going.
Yeah, if we could hold out for another 19 minutes, it'll be right at the
kidding me.
the 3 hour mark.
That's easy.
I think.
I've talked about less for 19 minutes. No, I think that
Let's
was
talk
good.
about this cubicle you had. I never pictured this cubicle.
Oh, it was horrible. It was like a torture chamber.
What'd you have on the walls? Did you
Nothing.
have any paintings? Nuh-uh, no way. You
100%
have a picture of your
nothing.
Mini Cooper?
No, I had nothing on my walls.
Mini Cooper
I did correction. I had the oath of office for the Army.
I figured it was the cat
that was
hanging there.
No,
Hang in there.
Mondays, grrr.
I was in such a bad place that I was like, I hated everything. So I was like, I don't want all this crap. So I had like my binders that had my lessons plans in it, my computer that I was issued, and a phone. And that was like it. I mean, it was as Spartan as it comes. But that was a lot of my own like, oh, F everything kind of mentality I was in at the moment. And my humble brag, like, I'm not going to show you all my awards. Like, I don't have any. Like, I don't know. I was in a really, really weird headspace. But to answer your question, Josh, I had the most Spartan cubicle ever for 5 years at the Command General Staff College.
It's hard to believe.
It's nothing. Yeah. But no, this was really good, man.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yes, it does. I haven't actually done one of these in a while, so it was nice.
Good for you too.
So
good.
I'm glad that you guys agreed to come out and talk and sit down and
This is awesome.
share. So I really appreciate it.
Trust me, I found every way in my mind to get out of this. I was moments away from a text 15 times to tell you I got this and that going on.
You would never heard the end of that if
Oh, I know.
drove out here and you didn't say anything. And, like,
Well, I would have said something anyway. I would have not just showed up, but.
Yeah.
But that's the beauty, right? Is having accountability partners and people that you trust and you care about, and especially with like you two, since I was your mentor, like not the greatest example to set.
Yeah, you kind of had to show up. I mean, and then I would have told Rachel if you didn't show up,
God.
and then that would have been even worse.
Well, if only people understood that whole dilemma. I have to go every time I see your wife and have to remind myself that I blow her off on equine therapy.
Yeah, she
so.
mentioned that this morning. She said she wanted me
Oh,
to.
I committed to this, but I won't commit to that.
Yeah, she wanted for me to let you guys know that she likes both of you, and she's anticipating, looking forward
that's
to
right. Josh has
therapy.
blown her off too, right?
Yeah.
No, my present to Jeremy was a sign that she couldn't cook.
Oh yes, I remember you told me the story. Yeah.
He gave me some MREs, and
that was the
I think she brought it up right as we were getting to equine therapy last week.
Yeah.
It came out, and I didn't understand the context, and he explained it to me later, and I was like, oh, okay, okay. No, but this was selfishly, I think I got a lot out of this too. Just to always talk is good to get things out, you know. And it was easy. Like you made it very easy.
Good.
Just to
I'm
talk,
glad.
to chat. Yeah.
I am glad. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So,
great experience.
Final thoughts.
Show yourself some grace. I've never been able to give myself grace. I beat myself up over the littlest things. And I still probably haven't learned it. So practice what you preach. This is not an example of that. However, I wish I could attain that to a degree. And I mean, I'm better. But we need to show each other and ourselves some grace. I used to tell my students, this is my final thought. I used to tell my students this, and again, I don't practice what I preach. I know the answers to the tests. I just don't ever do well on the tests. I used to tell my students, be nice to people. When you're walking the halls of the academic building, hold doors for people, say hello, smile, because you don't know what other people are going through, right? And I always think about that with myself, because people had no idea what I was going through, and people were insanely kind to me, and I was never the kind person to anybody. But so not only show yourself some grace, but show others some grace, because you really don't know what people are dealing with, and what a better world we'd be if we just kind of mutually understood each other a little better and like showed each other a little bit of grace, because people are struggling, and there's some real stuff going on with individuals, and that's kind of like one step at a time, and we can, not to sound overly dramatic, but really build a better world that way, to a degree, if we just showed each other a little bit of grace and showed ourselves a little bit of grace. So, final thought.
Josh, final thoughts?
Well, yeah, I mean, just kind of what Ken said. Everyone's struggling, like you said, to a certain degree, and no one really knows. And so that's why I try to do what Ken said. When I go out and I see strangers, just smile. I don't have to get in a conversation. Sometimes it helps. But I've noticed a lot more coming out of my Revenant journey, leading my foot with vulnerability with people goes a lot further than going in with, how am I going to get out of this room?
Yep.
Pie the corners.
Who has a weapon that I can steal and I'm going to get out of the damn room? It goes a lot further when I do the vulnerability tip. And I see it. And I can tell in their voices, just people over the phone even I come in contact with now, that just being a human being with them and really saying, how are you doing? And meaning it, not like, how are you doing? Oh, by the way. And it's like, that's not really, I don't care. So just not going through the motions, I guess, nowadays has helped me out a lot. And then just, trying to understand. I'm not looking for differences in people as I go out in the world anymore. I always just said, that person's all fucked up. Look at their shoes, or they're not ready for anything to happen. But more being curious, the similarities of how are we the same, and we all have 2 arms, 2 legs, a head, hopefully, and we're trying to make it through. So can't really,
really good.
I can't fault my fellow human beings for doing what they're doing based off of whatever they went through, because I don't know.
Right.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
All right. Well, Ken, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jeremy, for doing this. This is, I'm sure you make a difference doing this. So.
Well, I like to hope so. And that's the reason why we did this, why I started this podcast is, to maybe hopefully catch somebody before they get too far down the line, or as far down the line as, I got, or wherever. So, yeah, that's the goal. So, Josh, thank you. I really appreciate you coming, sitting in and running the computer for me and throwing in some tidbits here and there. So
my pleasure.
Everybody, thanks for stopping by. Remember, if you are struggling, there are resources out there for you. So don't hesitate to reach out and let somebody that let them know you're struggling, or let somebody know that if they're struggling, that reach out to them and let them know you care. So that ending was terrible. I haven't done that in way too long. So anyway, I mean, yeah. So anyway, you know how it's supposed to go if you've watched this podcast before. So just refer back to a different one. So, all right. So yeah, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time.